A gleaming silver spacecraft pierces the sky above New York City, descending with unearthly grace towards Times Square. The alien vessel touches down, its metallic surface shimmering in the midday sun. A hush falls over the gathered crowd as a hatch slides open, revealing a figure that defies human expectations. High Priestess Ava of the Wadi alien race emerges, her iridescent blue skin catching the light. Flowing silver hair cascades down her shoulders, framing a face of otherworldly beauty. Her ornate robes, reminiscent of a nun's habit, rustle as she glides towards the awestruck onlookers. Ava's voice, clear and melodious, cuts through the silence. "People of Earth, I come seeking your aid. My species requires what we call sacred nectar, your reproductive fluid, to complete a vital religious ritual. Without it, we face extinction." The crowd murmurs in confusion and disbelief. Ava continues, explaining that Wadi scientists have discovered a unique enzyme in human genetic material crucial for stabilizing their declining genome. Her words send shockwaves through the gathered masses and beyond. Within hours, the United Nations convenes an emergency session. World leaders debate the unprecedented request, their faces etched with concern. The stakes become clear as intelligence reports reveal the extent of Wadi technological superiority. Faster-than-light travel, energy weapons that could easily overwhelm Earth's defenses, the potential for conflict looms large. As tensions rise in the UN chamber, a name is mentioned: Henry Freeman, the 28-year-old biochemist, known for his work at a top-secret government facility, is urgently summoned. His exceptionally robust genetic profile has made him the primary candidate to provide the sacred nectar. Henry arrives at UN headquarters, his mind racing. Officials brief him on the situation, explaining the potential benefits of an alliance with the technologically advanced Wadi. Yet Henry hesitates. The ethical implications and risks of interspecies fluid exchange weigh heavily on his conscience. As the gravity of the situation sinks in, Henry's resolve wavers. The fate of two species hangs in the balance. His decision could shape the future of human-alien relations. With a deep breath, he agrees to meet privately with Ava to discuss the ritual's details. The door opens, and Ava enters the room. Her ethereal presence fills the space, her silver hair shimmering under the fluorescent lights. Henry stands, his heart pounding. As their eyes meet, the air crackles with tension and possibility. The stage is set for an encounter that will redefine the boundaries between human and alien, sacred and profane, duty and desire. As the door closed behind them, Henry and Ava found themselves alone in a stark, sterile room within the United Nations headquarters. The air hummed with an otherworldly energy, a result of the alien technology used to create a controlled environment for their meeting. Henry's eyes darted around the room, taking in the sleek, unfamiliar equipment before settling on Ava. Up close, her alien beauty was even more striking. Her iridescent blue skin seemed to pulse with an inner light, and her silver hair moved gently as if stirred by an unseen breeze. "I appreciate your willingness to meet with me, Henry," Ava began, her melodious voice filling the room. "I understand this situation must be overwhelming for you." Henry nodded, his throat suddenly dry. "It's a lot to process," he managed. "I have so many questions." Ava's lips curved into a gentle smile. "Of course, I'm here to provide answers and explain the importance of what we're asking of you." As Ava began to detail the intricacies of Wadi biology, Henry found himself leaning in, captivated by her words and presence. She explained their complex reproductive process, which involved absorbing genetic material from compatible species and combining it with their own DNA. The enzyme found in human reproductive fluid is crucial for stabilizing this process, Ava said, her eyes meeting Henry's. Without it, our species faces genetic degradation and eventual extinction. Henry listened intently, his scientific mind whirring with questions and possibilities. As Ava spoke, he became acutely aware of a growing attraction to her. Her alien features, once so strange, now seemed alluring. Noticing his reaction, Ava paused. "I should explain," she said softly. "Wadi females produce powerful pheromones that can affect human males. It's an evolutionary adaptation to ensure successful mating with compatible species. Before Henry could respond, the door opened, admitting a small group of human and Wadi scientists. Among them was Dr. Emily Thompson, a renowned geneticist Henry had long admired from afar. Dr. Thompson stepped forward, her face a mask of professional calm. "Mr. Freeman, we've completed our initial analysis," she said, gesturing to her Wadi counterpart, a tall, willowy being introduced as Zortal. Zortal's voice was a low, soothing hum. "Our findings confirm that your genetic profile is indeed ideal for the ritual," he said. "However, we must warn you of potential risks." Dr. Thompson picked up the thread. "There's a possibility of DNA alterations in your reproductive cell," she explained, her eyes meeting Henry's. "We can't predict the long-term effects with certainty." Henry's mind reeled with the implications. The weight of the decision pressed down on him, his earlier dedication wavering. I need time to think," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of medical examinations and psychological evaluations. Henry's body and mind were probed, tested, and analyzed as he grappled with the enormity of what was being asked of him. Outside the secure facility, the world erupted in a frenzy of excitement, fear, and speculation. News of the alien request spread like wildfire, igniting passionate debates and protests across the globe. As the deadline for his decision approached, Henry found himself ushered into a meeting with President Sarah Thompson. The president's face was a study in controlled tension as she outlined the diplomatic implications of his choice. "Other nations are vying to provide their own candidates," she explained, her voice low and urgent. "Your decision could shift global power dynamics significantly." Henry left the meeting with his head spinning, the pressure of his choice bearing down on him. As he entered the final briefing room, his eyes locked with Ava's. The attraction between them crackled in the air, a palpable force that transcended their biological differences. Taking a deep breath, Henry stepped forward. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "But I have conditions." The room fell silent as Henry outlined his terms: full transparency throughout the process, ongoing medical monitoring, and a guarantee of technological advancements for Earth in return for their cooperation. As the UN and Wadi representatives nodded their agreement, Henry felt a mix of relief and apprehension wash over him. He watched as a team of human and alien technicians began preparing a special chamber for the ritual, a fusion of terrestrial and extraterrestrial technology designed to optimize the extraction and transfer of the sacred nectar. Standing at the threshold of this unprecedented union between human and alien, Henry cast one last glance at Ava. Her alien eyes met his, filled with a mixture of gratitude and something else, something that made his pulse quicken. As he stepped into the chamber for his final briefing, Henry couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to embark on a journey that would change not just his life, but the course of human history. As Henry stepped into the chamber for his final briefing, the gravity of the situation settled over him like a heavy cloak. The room buzzed with activity as human and Wadi technicians made last-minute adjustments to the equipment. Dr. Emily Thompson approached, her face a mask of professional composure. "Mr. Freeman, we're ready to begin the final preparations," she said, gesturing to a nearby examination table. "Please, if you would." Henry complied, lying back on the cool surface. As Dr. Thompson began attaching various sensors to his body, he couldn't help but notice the glances she kept stealing towards Zortal, the Wadi chief science officer. The alien's willowy form loomed over a complex array of holographic displays, his long fingers dancing across the controls with practiced ease. "We'll be monitoring your vitals throughout the process," Dr. Thompson explained, her voice low and focused. "These readings will help us ensure your body can withstand the unique stresses of the ritual." Zortal glided over, a small vial of iridescent liquid in his hand. "This supplement will enhance your body's production of the enzyme-rich sacred nectar," he hummed, his voice a soothing vibration. "It may cause some sensations as your system adjusts." Henry eyed the vial warily, but nodded his assent. As the cool liquid slid down his throat, he felt a tingling warmth spread through his body. His skin prickled, heightening his awareness of every sensation. the soft whir of machinery, the gentle puff of recycled air, the lingering scent of Ava's alien pheromones. Over the next few days, Henry's world narrowed to a series of tests, briefings, and carefully monitored meals. His body thrummed with energy, the Wadi supplements pushing his physiology to new limits. Through it all, Ava was a constant presence, her alien beauty a balm to his frayed nerves. During one of their frequent meetings, ostensibly to discuss the ritual, Henry found himself drawn to Ava like never before. Her silver hair seemed to dance with its own inner light, and her blue skin shimmered with an otherworldly allure. "Henry," Ava said, her melodious voice sending shivers down his spine, "I want you to understand the true significance of what you're undertaking. This ritual, it's more than just a physical act. It's a merging of our species on a fundamental level." As she spoke, Ava's hand brushed against Henry's arm. The contact sent a jolt through him, igniting a fire in his veins. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the rest of the world fell away. It was only the two of them, suspended in a bubble of unspoken desire. The spell was broken by a sharp knock at the door. President Sarah Thompson entered, her face etched with concern. "Mr. Freeman, High Priestess, we have a situation." She quickly briefed them on the growing protests worldwide and the increasing diplomatic tensions. "We need to move up the timeline," she said, her voice tight with stress. "The ritual needs to happen within the next 48 hours. As they rushed to make the necessary adjustments, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors in an eerie glow as security personnel swarmed into action. "We're under attack," a voice crackled over the intercom. "All personnel to secure locations immediately." Henry's training kicked in. Grabbing Ava's hand, he pulled her into a nearby service corridor. "This way," he urged, navigating the maze-like passages with practiced ease. They could hear the sounds of struggle echoing through the facility, the sharp reports of gunfire mingling with the high-pitched whine of Wadi energy weapons. Henry's heart pounded in his ears as he led Ava through a series of maintenance shafts, away from the chaos. As they emerged into a secure area, they found themselves face-to-face with a group of armed intruders. Time seemed to slow as Henry assessed the situation. Without hesitation, he pushed Ava behind a nearby console and dove for cover himself, narrowly avoiding a hail of gunfire. Using his knowledge of the facility's systems, Henry managed to activate emergency containment protocols, trapping the attackers in a force field. As security forces swarmed in to apprehend the saboteurs, Henry turned to find Ava staring at him with a mixture of awe and gratitude. "You saved me," she breathed, her alien eyes wide with emotion. Before Henry could respond, they were whisked away to a secure debriefing room. The next few hours passed in a blur of interrogations and security assessments. When the dust finally settled, it was clear that the attack had only strengthened the dedication of both humans and Wadi to see the ritual through. As dawn broke on the day of the ritual, Henry found himself standing before a full-length mirror, barely recognizing the figure that stared back at him. He was encased in a sleek, form-fitting suit that pulsed with lines of ethereal light, a perfect fusion of human and Wadi technology. Dr. Thompson made some final adjustments to the suit, her fingers trembling slightly as she worked. "Remember," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "we'll be monitoring you every step of the way. If anything feels wrong, anything at all, you let us know immediately." Henry nodded, his throat too dry for words. As he was led to the ritual chamber, he caught sight of Ava being escorted from the opposite direction. She was a vision in flowing robes that seemed to capture and refract every available light source. The chamber doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a space that defied easy description. It was as if two realities had been merged, sleek human technology seamlessly blended with the organic, almost living architecture of the Wadi. As Henry and Ava approached each other in the center of the chamber, surrounded by a mix of human scientists and Wadi priests, the air itself seemed to come alive with possibility. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Henry knew that whatever happened next would change not just his life, but the course of human history forever. The chamber doors slid shut with a soft hiss, sealing Henry and Ava inside the otherworldly space. The air crackled with anticipation as they stood at opposite ends of the room, their eyes locked in a silent exchange of mutual understanding and trepidation. Henry's suit pulsed with ethereal light, matching the rhythm of his rapidly beating heart. He took a deep breath, steadying himself for what was to come. Across the chamber, Ava's robes shimmered, casting dancing patterns on the walls. Dr. Thompson's voice came through a small earpiece, steady and reassuring. "We're monitoring your vitals, Henry. Remember, if anything feels off, let us know immediately." Henry nodded, knowing the cameras would pick up his response. He watched as Ava began to move, her body flowing into a series of graceful, dance-like motions. Each gesture seemed to charge the air around her, filling the room with an otherworldly energy that made the hairs on Henry's arms stand on end. As Ava's dance continued, Henry felt a tingling sensation spread through his body. It started as a gentle warmth in his chest, then radiated outward to his fingertips and toes. The sensation intensified as Ava drew closer, her movements becoming more intricate and purposeful. Following the ancient Wadi tradition, Ava began to remove her ceremonial robes. Layer by layer, she revealed her alien physique. Henry's breath caught in his throat as he took in her form, familiar yet exotic, with curves and contours that echoed human anatomy but diverged in subtle, mesmerizing ways. Henry's heart rate spiked, a fact he was sure wasn't lost on the monitoring scientists. He felt a pull towards Ava, an inexorable force drawing him closer. As if guided by some unseen choreographer, they began a series of synchronized movements, their bodies moving in harmony. Their first touch sent a jolt through Henry's system. Where their skin met, a soft blue glow emanated, matching the hue of Ava's skin. Henry heard gasps and murmurs from the observation room, but they seemed distant and unimportant compared to the sensations coursing through his body. As the ritual progressed, Henry and Ava's movements became more intimate. Each caress, each point of contact between them seemed to spark with energy. Henry's skin began to glow faintly, mirroring the ethereal luminescence of Ava's alien flesh. A fine mist began to form around them, starting as a light fog and quickly thickening into an opaque barrier. Within this cocoon, Henry felt his perception of reality begin to shift. He could no longer tell where his body ended and Ava's began. They moved together in impossible ways, their forms seeming to merge and separate in a hypnotic dance that defied human biology. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. The mist surrounding them pulsed with increasing intensity, and Henry felt a surge of power building within and around him. He heard Dr. Thompson's voice distorted and frantic, calling out to him, but her words were lost in the growing maelstrom of energy. The chamber filled with a blinding light, erupting from within their misty cocoon. Henry felt as if he was being torn apart and reconstructed at the molecular level. Every cell in his body sang with an alien symphony, rewriting his very essence. As quickly as it began, the surge of energy subsided. The mist dissipated, leaving Henry and Ava standing at the center of the chamber, their bodies intertwined and glowing with a soft, pulsating light. Henry blinked, his vision slowly returning to normal. He looked down at his hands, noticing a subtle blue tint to his skin. Beside him, Ava's typically vibrant blue complexion had taken on a more human-like tone. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Henry felt a rush of thoughts and emotions that were not his own. "Ava," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "I'm here, Henry," she replied. But her lips didn't move. Her voice echoed in his mind, clear as day. Medical teams rushed into the chamber, surrounding them with a flurry of activity. Scanners whirred, and voices overlapped as human and Wadi scientists alike struggled to make sense of what had transpired. Dr. Thompson approached, her face a mask of professional concern, barely concealing her excitement. "Henry, Ava, how do you feel?" "Different," Henry replied, struggling to find the words to describe the sensation. "Connected." Ava nodded in agreement. "We are more than we were," she added, her mental voice harmonizing with her spoken words in Henry's mind. As the medical teams conducted their examinations, snippets of conversation reached Henry's ears. "Genetic structure altered," one scientist muttered. "Traces of Wadi DNA," another confirmed. Similar observations were made about Ava, her biology now showing clear signs of human genetic integration. The chamber buzzed with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Henry could sense the weight of what had transpired settling over everyone present. This was more than just a successful ritual. It was an unprecedented melding of two species, with implications that stretched far beyond the walls of this facility. President Sarah Thompson's voice cut through the chaos, her tone urgent but controlled. "I need a full report in 5 minutes, and get me a secure line to the Wadi High Council. We need to address this immediately." As Henry and Ava were led to a recovery area, their hands remained clasped, neither willing to break the physical connection that mirrored their new mental bond. They could feel the storm brewing around them, the questions, the fears, the potential for both conflict and unprecedented cooperation. For now, though, they remained in their own world, marveling at the changes they had undergone and the new reality they now inhabited. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, not just as representatives of their respective species, but as something entirely new. The door to the recovery room closed behind them, but Henry knew this was just the beginning. The true impact of their transformation was yet to be seen, and the galaxy itself might never be the same. The world would never be the same. As Henry and Ava were escorted from the ritual chamber, their intertwined hands glowing with a soft, pulsating light, they could feel the weight of history settling upon them. The facility buzzed with frantic activity, scientists and officials rushing to make sense of what had transpired. Dr. Thompson approached them, her eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and concern. "We need to get you both to the quarantine wing immediately," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "We have no idea what the full extent of these changes might be." Henry nodded, still struggling to process the flood of new sensations coursing through his body. He could feel Ava's presence in his mind, a warm, comforting glow that seemed to fill the spaces between his thoughts. As they were led through the winding corridors of the facility, Henry caught glimpses of the chaos unfolding around them. Alarms blared, and security personnel rushed past, their faces set in unwavering drive. Through windows, he could see teams of scientists huddled around monitors, gesticulating wildly as they pored over data streams. The quarantine wing was a stark contrast to the rest of the facility. As the doors sealed behind them with a soft hiss, Henry and Ava found themselves in a serene, clinically white space. The room was spacious, filled with advanced medical equipment and monitoring systems that hummed softly in the background. "This will be your home for the foreseeable future," Dr. Thompson explained, her voice coming through an intercom system. "We need to keep you isolated while we assess the changes you've undergone." As the days stretched into weeks, Henry and Ava's existence became a whirlwind of tests, examinations, and interviews. Teams of human and Wadi scientists worked tirelessly, led by Dr. Emily Thompson and her Wadi counterpart, Zortal. Their psychic connection intensified with each passing day. What had started as a vague sense of each other's presence blossomed into a full-fledged telepathic link. Henry found he could communicate with Ava without speaking, their thoughts intertwining in a dance of ideas and emotions. One morning, as Henry sat on the edge of his bed, he felt a sudden surge of excitement from Ava. He turned to see her staring intently at a stylus on the nearby desk. To his amazement, the pen began to quiver, then slowly rise into the air. "Ava," he breathed, his eyes wide. "Are you doing that?" She nodded, her face a mask of concentration. "I can feel the energy around it," she replied, her mental voice echoing in his mind. "It's like extending my will." As Ava honed her telekinetic abilities, Henry discovered his own new talents. His strength and stamina increased dramatically, and his senses sharpened to superhuman levels. He could hear conversations from across the quarantine wing and see details invisible to normal human eyes. Their developments did not go unnoticed. Through their heightened senses, they could hear the heated debates taking place among the scientists and officials observing them. "The implications of this are staggering," Dr. Thompson's voice drifted through the walls. "If we could harness these abilities, the applications would be endless." "We must proceed with caution," Zortal countered, his tone grave. "We do not yet understand the full extent of these changes or their potential consequences." As they lay in their separate beds one night, Henry reached out to Ava through their mental link. Do you ever wonder what's happening out there, Weenant? He asked, his thoughts tinged with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Constantly, Ava replied, her mental voice a soothing presence in his mind. I can sense the turmoil, even from here. Our union has changed more than just us, Henry. The ripples are spreading far beyond these walls. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden commotion outside their quarantine zone. They heard raised voices and the sound of hurried footsteps. Moments later, Dr. Thompson's face appeared on a large screen in their room, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. Henry, Ava, we've made a breakthrough, she announced, her words tumbling out in a rush. Your genetic changes have stabilized, forming a new hybrid DNA structure. It's remarkable. The potential applications are beyond anything we could have imagined. Before they could fully process this information, alarms began to blare throughout the facility. Red emergency lights bathed the room in an eerie glow as a new voice came over the intercom system. Attention all personnel, the voice boomed, tight with urgency. We have reports of widespread genetic alterations occurring in the general population. This is not a drill. Implement containment protocols immediately. Henry and Ava exchanged a look of shock and dawning realization. Their transformation was no longer an isolated incident. Whatever had changed them was spreading, rewriting the very fabric of both their species. As the alarms continued to wail, they could sense the panic and confusion radiating from beyond their quarantine walls. The world outside was changing, evolving in ways no one had anticipated, and they, the first of this new hybrid species, found themselves at the eye of the storm. Through their psychic link, they shared a moment of understanding. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As the facility around them erupted into frenzied activity, Henry reached out and took Ava's hand, their fingers intertwining as they had in the ritual chamber. The next chapter of their journey was about to begin, and the fate of two worlds hung in the balance. Balance hung heavy in the air, an almost tangible weight pressing down on them both. Suddenly, the quarantine room's doors hissed open, breaking the tension. Dr. Thompson strode in, her face a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Henry, Ava, it's time, she announced, her voice tight with hardly restrained energy. We're moving you to a new facility. The situation has escalated. Within hours, Henry and Ava found themselves aboard a high-speed transport, whisking them away from the familiar confines of their quarantine chamber. Through the vehicle's tinted windows, they caught glimpses of a world in turmoil. Streets filled with protesters, military checkpoints, and news crews jostling for position. As they approached their destination, a sprawling complex materialized on the horizon. Nestled in a secluded area outside New York City, the state-of-the-art research facility gleamed in the afternoon sun, a beacon of hope and scientific progress. Welcome to the Interspecies Crisis Management Team headquarters, Dr. Thompson said as they disembarked. This is where we'll be working to develop a treatment for the spreading genetic alterations. Henry and Ava exchanged a glance, their psychic link humming with shared anticipation and trepidation. As they entered the facility, they were immediately engulfed in a flurry of activity. Scientists from both species hurried through the corridors, their voices a cacophony of urgent discussions and theoretical debates. In the days that followed, Henry and Ava settled into a grueling routine of tests, examinations, and experiments. Their bodies became living laboratories, providing invaluable data for the research team led by Dr. Thompson and her Wadi counterpart, Zortal. During one particularly intense session, Henry's newfound strength manifested unexpectedly. As he gripped a specialized sensor, the device crumpled in his hand smoothly. Alarms blared and the research team scrambled to contain any potential hazards. Guess I don't know my own strength, Henry muttered, staring at his hand in disbelief. Dr. Thompson's eyes gleamed with a mixture of concern and fascination. This incident highlights the need for specially reinforced equipment, she noted, tapping furiously on her datapad. We'll need to adapt our entire approach to accommodate your enhanced abilities. As the days stretched into weeks, Henry and Ava's unique bond continued to evolve. Their psychic connection deepened, allowing them to share not just thoughts, but physical sensations as well. This development proved both exhilarating and challenging as they navigated their new reality. During a rare moment of respite, Henry and Ava found themselves alone in the facility's observation deck, gazing out at the sprawling forest beyond the perimeter fence, their hands intertwined, a soft blue glow emanating from where their skin met. "I can feel your heartbeat," Ava whispered, her mental voice a soothing presence in Henry's mind. "It's like we're one being." Henry nodded, struggling to find words to describe the intensity of their connection. The line between them blurred, emotions and sensations flowing freely between their linked consciousnesses. Their moment of intimacy was interrupted by the sudden appearance of Zortal, his normally stoic features creased with excitement. "We've made a breakthrough," he announced, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid speech. "Dr. Thompson has discovered a unique protein in Henry's hybrid DNA. We believe it could be the key to stabilizing the genetic changes." As they hurried to the main laboratory, Henry and Ava could sense the palpable excitement in the air. Screens displayed complex molecular structures, with one particular protein highlighted in pulsating red. "We're calling it freestyle," Dr. Thompson explained, her eyes alight with the thrill of discovery. "It acts as a stabilizing agent for the genetic mutations. If we can synthesize it, we might be able to control the spread of these changes." The research team redoubled their efforts, working around the clock to unravel the mysteries of freestyle. Henry and Ava found themselves at the center of this scientific maelstrom, their bodies providing the blueprint for potentially world-changing breakthroughs. As the pressure mounted, Henry and Ava sought solace in each other's company. During one such moment, their intimate connection triggered an unexpected phenomenon. The air around them began to shimmer, coalescing into a familiar mist. Alarmed, they tried to separate, but the process had already begun. The mist swirled between them, taking on a solid form. Within moments, a shimmering, egg-like structure materialized, hovering in the space between their bodies. Alarms blared as the facility's sensors detected the anomaly. Within seconds, a containment field sprang to life around the mysterious object, isolating it for study. Dr. Thompson burst into the room, her face a mask of shock and awe. "What in the world?" she breathed, approaching the containment field cautiously. Initial scans revealed the egg-like structure contained rapidly dividing cells, a perfect blend of human and Wadi DNA. The implications were staggering. Henry and Ava had potentially created the first embryo of a new hybrid species. As news of this development spread, the facility erupted into chaos. Scientists argued over the ethical implications, security personnel scrambled to lock down the area, and communication channels buzzed with urgent messages to world leaders. Henry and Ava stood at the center of the storm, their hands clasped tightly as they gazed at the shimmering, egg-like structure. They could feel the weight of history pressing down upon them, the future of two species now inextricably linked to their actions. Outside the facility's walls, the world held its breath, awaiting news that would forever change the course of human and Wadi relations. The next phase of their journey was about to begin, and the consequences would reshape the very fabric of both societies. Societies hung in the balance. The egg-like structure pulsed with an otherworldly blue glow, casting eerie shadows across the faces of Henry and Ava. They stood transfixed, their hands still intertwined, as chaos erupted around them. Scientists rushed to and fro, shouting orders and adjusting equipment to contain and study the anomaly. Dr. Thompson approached the containment field, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and scientific curiosity. "This is unprecedented," she breathed, running her hand through her disheveled hair. "We need to begin non-invasive testing immediately." As if on cue, a team of researchers wheeled in an array of sophisticated scanning equipment. The air hummed with the whir of machines and the rapid-fire exchange of technical jargon as they set to work. Henry felt a surge of protectiveness course through him, amplified by his connection to Ava. "What exactly are you planning to do?" he asked, his voice tight with concern. Dr. Thompson turned to face them, her expression softening. "We'll start with basic electromagnetic scans and progress from there. I assure you, we won't do anything to harm whatever this is." As the days wore on, the facility transformed into a hive of frenetic activity. The mysterious egg became the focal point of intense study, with Dr. Thompson and Zortal working around the clock to unravel its secrets. One morning, Henry and Ava were jolted awake by the blaring of alarms. Red lights flashed throughout the complex as security personnel rushed past their quarters. Commander John Steele, a grizzled U.S. Navy SEAL with a no-nonsense demeanor, burst into their room. "We've got a situation," he barked, his steely eyes scanning the area. "Intelligence reports indicate possible attacks by anti-integration extremists. We're moving you to a secure location." As they hurried through the corridors, Henry caught glimpses of heavily armed soldiers taking up defensive positions. The once pristine research facility now resembled a military stronghold. Ava's voice echoed in Henry's mind, tinged with worry. "I can sense their fear," she communicated silently. "It's overwhelming." Henry squeezed her hand reassuringly as they were ushered into a reinforced safe room. The door sealed behind them with a pneumatic hiss, leaving them in relative silence. Hours passed, marked only by the muffled sounds of increased security measures being implemented outside. Finally, Dr. Thompson entered, looking haggard but determined. "We've established a joint human Wadi security task force," she explained, collapsing into a chair. "Commander Steele and Zarvin, an elite Wadi warrior, are coordinating our defenses." As she spoke, Henry noticed a shift in the energy around them. The air seemed to crackle with an invisible charge, and he felt a familiar tingling sensation at the base of his skull. Ava gasped, her eyes widening. "The egg," she whispered aloud. "Something's happening." They rushed to the observation room, where a flurry of activity surrounded the containment field. The egg-like structure pulsated with increasing intensity, emitting waves of energy that caused nearby equipment to spark and malfunction. Dr. Thompson frantically typed commands into a console, her brow furrowed in concentration. "These energy pulses," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "They seem to correspond with your emotional states." Henry and Ava exchanged a glance, their psychic link buzzing with shared realization. Their connection, their bond, was somehow influencing the development of the hybrid embryo. As they grappled with this revelation, a commotion erupted near the facility's main entrance. Security alarms blared, and the sound of gunfire echoed through the complex. Commander Steele's voice crackled over the intercom. "We have a breach. Hostiles have infiltrated the East Wing. All non-essential personnel evacuate immediately." Chaos descended upon the facility. Scientists scrambled to secure vital research data, while security forces engaged the intruders. Through the din, Henry caught snippets of conversation about a group of rogue human scientists led by someone named Dr. Marcus Reeves. Instinctively, Henry positioned himself between Ava and the door, his enhanced strength coiling in his muscles like a spring ready to uncoil. Ava's eyes narrowed in concentration, objects around the room beginning to vibrate in response to her telekinetic energy. The door burst open, revealing a wild-eyed man in a lab coat, flanked by armed guards. "The egg," he snarled, his gaze fixed on the pulsating structure. "Hand it over, and no one gets hurt." Henry's voice was low and dangerous as he responded, "I don't think so, Dr. Reeves." In that moment, as tension crackled through the air like electricity, Henry and Ava stood united, their unique abilities poised to defend not just themselves, but the future of both their species. The confrontation that followed would reshape the course of human-Wadi relations forever. The standoff between Henry, Ava, and Dr. Reeves crackled with tension. Just as the situation seemed poised to explode into violence, alarms blared throughout the facility, casting an eerie red glow over the scene. "Security breach in Sector 7, a voice announced over the intercom. "All personnel evacuate immediately." Dr. Reeves hesitated, his wild eyes darting between Henry and the pulsating egg-like structure. In that moment of distraction, Ava seized her chance. With a burst of telekinetic energy, she sent the intruder's weapons flying across the room. Henry sprang into action, his enhanced strength allowing him to disarm and subdue Dr. Reeves and his guards with startling efficiency. As security forces rushed in to secure the prisoners, Commander Steele burst into the room, his face grim. "We've got a bigger problem," he announced, gesturing for Henry and Ava to follow him. "The assassination threat against President Thompson and the Wadi High Priestess has escalated. We're moving the joint address to a secure location." As they hurried through the chaos-filled corridors, Dr. Thompson fell into step beside them, her voice urgent. The egg's energy emissions are intensifying, she explained, tapping furiously on her tablet. We're detecting widespread effects on brain chemistry in the surrounding area. People are experiencing shared visions of human-body harmony. They entered a heavily fortified command center, where screens displayed a flurry of activity across the facility and beyond. Zortal, the Wadi scientist, approached with excitement in his eyes. We've made a breakthrough, he announced, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid speech. The energy pulses are creating a temporary psychic link similar to Henry and Ava's connection. We believe we can harness this phenomenon for the joint address. Dr. Thompson nodded, her eyes gleaming with possibility. If we can establish a controlled psychic link between President Thompson and the High Priestess during their speech, it could be a powerful demonstration of human-Wadi integration. Henry frowned, sensing the risk in such a plan. What about the potential side effects? He asked, remembering his own challenging experiences with the psychic bond. We don't have time for extensive testing, Dr. Thompson admitted, but the potential benefits outweigh the risks. It's our best chance to counter the growing opposition. As the scientists began preparations for the unprecedented experiment, Commander Steele pulled Henry and Ava aside. We've uncovered a more extensive plot, he said in a low voice. Extremist groups from both species have infiltrated the security details. We need to completely overhaul our protocols. Ava's eyes widened as she processed the implications. How can we help? She asked, her mental voice echoing her concern to Henry. Steele's expression hardened. Your abilities make you uniquely suited to protect the leaders during the address. It's dangerous, but we need you on the front lines. As Henry and Ava nodded their agreement, a commotion erupted near one of the monitoring stations. A young scientist called out, her voice filled with alarm. The prototype stabilization device is interacting with the egg's energy field. It's accelerating the spread of genetic alterations in the surrounding population. Dr. Thompson rushed to the console, her face paling as she analyzed the data. We need to contain this, fast, she muttered, fingers flying across the keyboard. Zortal, recalibrate the containment field. We can't let this spread beyond the facility. As the hours ticked by, the ICMT facility became a hive of frenzied activity. Scientists worked tirelessly to control the expanding energy field, while security forces prepared for the high-stakes joint address. Henry and Ava found themselves at the center of it all, their hybrid abilities more crucial than ever. Just as they were about to depart for the secure location, Dr. Thompson burst into the room, her eyes wild with excitement. We've done it, she exclaimed, brandishing a vial of shimmering liquid. We've isolated the key components of the freestyle protein. This could be the key to stabilizing the genetic changes. Before they could fully process this breakthrough, Henry and Ava felt a sudden surge in their psychic connection. The world around them seemed to blur, and they found themselves aware of the thoughts and feelings of those nearby. It was as if their shared consciousness had expanded, creating a localized network of minds linked by the hybrid energy field. Overwhelmed by the intensity of the experience, Henry steadied himself against a nearby console. What's happening? He gasped, looking to Dr. Thompson for answers. The scientist's eyes widened in astonishment. It seems the egg's energy has amplified your connection, she breathed. This could change everything. As they prepared to depart for the secure location, Henry and Ava exchanged a glance, their enhanced bond humming with shared willpower and apprehension. The fate of two species rested on their shoulders, and the challenges ahead were just getting started. Commander Steele's voice cut through their thoughts. It's time, he announced, his tone brooking no argument. Let's move out. With a final look at the pulsating egg-like structure, Henry and Ava followed the security team out of the facility. As they stepped into the waiting transport, they knew they were heading into uncharted territory where science, politics, and the very future of human-Wadi relations would collide in ways no one could have predicted. The transport sped through the streets, its occupants tense with anticipation. Henry and Ava sat side by side, their enhanced bond humming with shared anxiety and persistence. As they approached the secure location for the joint address, Ava's voice echoed in Henry's mind. I can feel the energy from the egg, she communicated silently. It's growing stronger. Henry nodded, his own senses tingling with the familiar sensation. As they arrived at the heavily fortified building, they were quickly ushered inside by a team of human and Wadi security personnel. The atmosphere inside was electric, a palpable mix of excitement and apprehension. President Sarah Thompson and the Wadi High Priestess were being prepared in separate rooms, their respective teams making final adjustments to their appearances and briefing them on last-minute details. Dr. Thompson approached Henry and Ava, her face a mask of controlled urgency. "We're ready to initiate the psychic link," she explained, gesturing to a team of scientists setting up equipment nearby. "Your presence here is crucial. If anything goes wrong, you may be our best chance at stabilizing the connection." As the final preparations were made, Henry and Ava took their positions near the stage. The room fell silent as President Thompson and the Wadi High Priestess emerged, their faces set with willpower. The two leaders took their places at the podium, and Dr. Thompson gave a silent signal. A low hum filled the air as the experimental psychic link was activated, drawing on the energy pulses from the egg-like structure back at the ICMT facility. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then suddenly, both leaders gasped, their eyes widening in unison. The audience watched in awe as an invisible connection formed between the human and Wadi representatives. President Thompson began to speak, her voice resonating with an otherworldly quality. "My fellow humans and our Wadi friends," she intoned, her words echoed simultaneously by the High Priestess in the Wadi language. "Today, we stand on the brink of a new era of understanding and cooperation." As the address continued, the intensity of the psychic link grew. Henry watched as beads of sweat formed on President Thompson's brow, her hands gripping the podium tightly. The High Priestess swayed slightly, her normally composed features contorting with effort. Suddenly, both leaders cried out, their voices merging into a single, harmonious sound. Their eyes glazed over, lost in visions only they could see. "The future," they spoke in unison, their voices filled with wonder and terror. "We see greatness and devastation, cities of light and shadow, harmony and chaos intertwined." The security teams shifted nervously, unsure how to react. Commander Steele caught Henry's eye, silently urging him to act. Without hesitation, Henry reached out and grasped Ava's hand. Together, they focused their hybrid abilities, extending their own psychic connection towards the struggling leaders. The effect was immediate and profound. As their minds merged with the existing link, Henry and Ava found themselves swept into a maelstrom of thoughts and emotions. Flashes of potential futures raced through their shared consciousness. Gleaming spaceships built with combined human and Wadi technology. Devastating conflicts born of fear and misunderstanding, and glimpses of a world forever changed by the merging of two species. Through the chaos, Henry and Ava worked in perfect synchronization, their hybrid abilities acting as a stabilizing force. They channeled the overwhelming flood of information, helping President Thompson and the High Priestess navigate the sea of visions. As the four minds melded, a new level of clarity emerged. Suddenly, Henry's enhanced senses picked up on subtle movements in the crowd. His gaze locked onto several individuals whose body language betrayed hidden intentions. "The infiltrators," Ava's voice resonated in their shared consciousness. "We can see them." Without a word, Commander Steele and Zarvin sprang into action. Moving with practiced efficiency, they coordinated their teams to swiftly and silently apprehend the would-be assassins. The potential threat was neutralized without disrupting the ongoing address. As the joint speech reached its climax, Henry felt a surge of energy unlike anything he had experienced before. The psychic link expanded exponentially, stretching far beyond the confines of the room. In that moment, millions of minds across the globe were briefly connected. Humans and Wadi alike gasped as they experienced a shared vision of unity and potential. The collective consciousness revealed not only the promise of their combined future, but also the fears and prejudices that threatened to tear it apart. As quickly as it had expanded, the global psychic event subsided. President Thompson and the High Priestess concluded their address, their voices trembling but resolute. "We have glimpsed our shared destiny," they proclaimed. Now we must work together to shape it. As the audience erupted into a mixture of applause and stunned silence, Henry and Ava felt a sudden, urgent pull in their minds. Their thoughts raced back to the ICMT facility and the egg-like structure that had started it all. "Something's happening," Ava whispered aloud, her eyes wide with a mix of excitement and fear. Before Henry could respond, Dr. Thompson rushed towards them, her face pale with urgency. "We need to get back to the facility immediately," she said, her voice tight with hardly restrained emotion. "The egg, it's about to hatch." As they hurried towards the exit, Henry's enhanced hearing picked up snippets of conversation from the crowd. Some spoke of miraculous visions and newfound understanding, while others voiced fear and confusion about the unprecedented mental connection they had experienced. The world around them buzzed with the aftermath of the global psychic event, but Henry and Ava knew their journey was far from finished. As they raced back to the ICMT facility, they could only imagine what new challenges awaited them with the imminent birth of the first human-Wadi hybrid offspring. The transport screeched to a halt outside the ICMT facility, its doors barely opening before Henry and Ava leapt out. They sprinted towards the entrance, their enhanced senses picking up the pulsing energy emanating from within. As they burst through the doors, they were met by a scene of controlled chaos. Scientists rushed back and forth, their voices a cacophony of urgent commands and excited exclamations. At the center of it all stood the egg-like structure, now glowing with an intensity that made it painful to look at directly. Dr. Thompson spotted them and waved them over, her face a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Thank goodness you're here," she said, her words tumbling out rapidly. "The egg's energy signature has spiked exponentially in the last hour. We believe the hatching process has begun." As if on cue, a loud crack echoed through the room. All eyes turned to the egg, where a small fissure had appeared on its iridescent surface. "Zortal, status report," Dr. Thompson called out. The Wadi scientist's tentacles danced over a complex array of instruments. "Energy levels are off the charts," he reported, his normally calm voice tinged with awe. "The egg's shell is becoming increasingly permeable to our sensors. We're detecting two distinct life signs inside." Henry and Ava exchanged a look of surprise. "Two?" Henry asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Before anyone could respond, the egg pulsed again, the crack widening. Suddenly, the air in the room seemed to thicken, pressing against their skin like an invisible force. "The egg's energy field is expanding," Dr. Thompson explained, her eyes glued to a nearby monitor. "It's interfering with our equipment. We need to stabilize it before—" Her words were cut off as the egg emitted a blinding flash of light. Henry instinctively reached out and grabbed Ava's hand, their hybrid abilities forming a protective shield around them. As the light faded and their vision cleared, they saw that every electronic device in the room had gone dark. The scientists blinked in confusion, momentarily disoriented. Then a soft cooing sound drew everyone's attention back to the egg. The shell had split open completely, revealing not one, but two small figures nestled inside. "Twins," Ava breathed, her voice filled with wonder. As the assembled team watched in awe, the hybrid infants slowly uncurled, their skins shimmering with a faint blue iridescence. Their eyes, large and expressive, shifted colors like kaleidoscopes as they took in their surroundings. Dr. Thompson approached cautiously, her scientific curiosity warring with an almost maternal instinct to protect. She gestured for a team to bring over portable medical equipment, unaffected by the earlier power surge. "Amazing," she murmured as she began her examination. "Their physical development is unlike anything I've ever seen, the perfect blend of human and Wadi characteristics." As the scientists worked, Henry and Ava found themselves drawn closer to the twins. An invisible bond seemed to form between them, a connection that hummed with energy and potential. Suddenly, both infants turned their gaze directly to Henry and Ava. A wave of emotion washed over the hybrid couple, joy, curiosity, and a profound sense of recognition. "They're communicating with us," Ava said, her eyes wide with surprise. "Telepathically." Dr. Thompson looked up from her examination, her face a mask of astonishment. "Already, but they're only minutes old." Henry nodded, his own mind blown from the contact. It's more than just communication. They're learning, absorbing information at an incredible rate. As if to prove his point, one of the twins, the male, reached out a tiny hand towards a nearby computer terminal. The screen flickered to life, data scrolling across it faster than the human eye could follow. The female twin, meanwhile, seemed to focus her attention on the people in the room. Scientists and security personnel alike found themselves experiencing a wave of calm and wonder, their earlier anxiety melting away. Empathic abilities, Zortal observed, his tentacles curling with excitement, and technological interface capabilities. Extraordinary. As the implications of what they were witnessing began to sink in, the room erupted into a flurry of activity. Dr. Thompson barked orders for more comprehensive tests, while security personnel moved to secure the perimeter of the facility. In the midst of the commotion, Commander Steele burst into the room, his face grim. "We've got a situation," he announced. "News of the twins' birth has leaked. The media is having a field day, and we're getting reports of religious groups declaring this a sign of the apocalypse. The president is convening an emergency session of the Interspecies Cooperative Council." Henry and Ava exchanged a concerned look, their thoughts in sync. They knew that the birth of these hybrid twins would change everything, not just for them, but for the entire world. As if sensing their thoughts, both infants turned to look at them once more. In that moment, Henry and Ava felt a surge of protectiveness wash over them. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they knew they would face them together, as a family. The twins cooed softly, their eyes shimmering with intelligence beyond their years. The future was uncertain, but in this moment, in this room, a new chapter in human-Wadi relations had begun. The birth of Aiden and Lyra marked the dawn of a new era, one that would challenge the very foundations of human and Wadi societies. In the weeks that followed, the ICMT facility became a hive of activity as scientists, led by Dr. Thompson and Zortal, worked tirelessly to study the rapidly developing hybrid twins. The infants' growth rate was nothing short of miraculous, their bodies and minds maturing at an unprecedented pace. Henry and Ava found themselves thrust into the roles of both parents and mentors, grappling with the challenges of raising children who seemed to outpace their own abilities with each passing day. By the end of the first month, Aiden and Lyra had reached the physical and cognitive equivalents of early adolescence, their iridescent skin now shimmering with a more pronounced blue hue. As the twins' growth accelerated, so did their powers. It started with small objects floating across rooms, books opening on their own, and lights flickering without apparent cause. At first, Henry and Ava believed they could manage these developments, drawing on their own experiences as hybrids to guide their children. However, on a particularly tense morning, as Aiden and Lyra engaged in what appeared to be a silent argument, the true extent of their abilities became frighteningly clear. With a mere thought, Aiden sent a nearby centrifuge hurtling across the lab, narrowly missing a group of startled scientists. Lyra, in response, created a shimmering force field that not only stopped the flying equipment, but crushed it into a compact ball of metal. The incident sent shockwaves through the facility. Dr. Thompson, her face pale with concern, immediately called for an emergency meeting with the research team and security personnel. "We need to face facts," she said, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. The twins' telekinetic abilities far surpass anything we've seen in Henry and Ava. We're dealing with a level of power we're simply not equipped to handle. Commander Steele, who had been overseeing security measures, nodded grimly. "We need to consider the potential dangers. If word of this gets out, it could cause panic, not to mention the risk if these abilities were to fall into the wrong hands." As if to underscore his point, an alarm blared through the facility. Zortal's tentacles flew over a nearby console, his eyes widening as he processed the incoming data. "We have multiple security breaches at research facilities around the globe," he reported, his voice tight with urgency. "Someone's coordinating a series of attacks, targeting our hybrid research data." Commander Steele sprang into action, barking orders into his communicator. "This has to be Evolutech," he growled. "They've made their move." As chaos erupted around them, Henry and Ava exchanged a look of understanding. They knew their responsibilities now extended beyond just their family. With a nod, they turned to their children, who stood watching the commotion with an eerie calm. "Aiden, Lyra," Henry said, kneeling to meet their eyes. "We need your help. People are trying to steal information that could be dangerous. Can you use your abilities to protect the facility systems?" The twins tilted their heads in unison, their kaleidoscope eyes swirling with colors. Without a word, they closed their eyes and seemed to concentrate. Suddenly, every screen in the room lit up with streams of data, firewalls visibly strengthening as the twins interfaced directly with the facility's defenses. "Incredible," Dr. Thompson breathed, watching as the security breaches were systematically shut down one by one. But even as they marveled at the twins' abilities, a new problem arose. Scientists from other departments began flooding into the main lab, their faces etched with confusion and fear. "Something's happening to us," one researcher said, holding up a hand that now shimmered faintly with a blue tinge. "And it's not just here. We're getting reports from all over the facility." Dr. Thompson's eyes widened in realization. "The twins," she whispered, "their presence. It's accelerating the spread of hybrid traits in those around them." As the implications of this discovery sank in, the facility descended into a flurry of activity. Dr. Thompson and Zortal immediately began working on containment measures, while Commander Steele coordinated with global security forces to address the evolutic threat. In the midst of the chaos, Henry and Ava found themselves facing the daunting task of not only protecting their extraordinary children, but also teaching them to control abilities that seemed to grow more powerful by the hour. "We need to start their training immediately," Ava said, her voice filled with a mixture of pride and apprehension. "But how do we teach them to manage powers we barely understand ourselves?" Henry squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Together," he said simply. "We'll figure it out together." As they turned to begin their first lesson, alarms blared once again. This time, it wasn't an external threat, but an internal one. The twins, overwhelmed by the surge of energy coursing through them, had unintentionally triggered a localized electromagnetic pulse, shutting down all electronics in the immediate vicinity. The lights flickered, plunging the lab into darkness. In the eerie blue glow emanating from the twins' skin, Henry and Ava faced the enormity of the challenge before them. They knew that the fate of human-Wadi relations, and perhaps the future of both species, now rested in the hands of these two extraordinary children. Outside the ICMT facility, news of the hybrid births and the subsequent genetic changes spreading through the local population began to leak to the media. As reporters clamored for information and religious groups declared the events a sign of impending doom, President Thompson prepared to address the nation. The world stood on the brink of a new era, one that would redefine the very nature of humanity and its place in the universe. The ICMT facility, once a beacon of hope for interspecies cooperation, now teetered on the edge of catastrophe. The first tremor caught everyone off guard. Beakers rattled on lab benches, and hairline cracks appeared in the reinforced walls. Dr. Thompson's eyes widened as she realized the source. "It's the twins," she breathed, watching as Aiden and Lyra's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. The ground beneath their feet bucked and heaved, sending scientists and security personnel scrambling for cover. Henry and Ava rushed to their children, only to be thrown back by an invisible force field emanating from the twins. "Their powers," Ava gasped, struggling to her feet. "They're growing exponentially." Commander Steele's voice crackled over the intercom, barely audible above the rumbling chaos. "We're detecting seismic activity spreading beyond the facility. Nearby towns are being evacuated. Dr. Thompson, we need containment measures now." Dr. Thompson's fingers flew over her tablet, initiating emergency protocols. "The freestyle protein suppression technique isn't ready," she shouted to Zortal. "We need more time." But time was a luxury they no longer had. As alarms blared throughout the facility, a new voice cut through the din. "This is Colonel Marcus Hawthorne. By order of President Thompson, we're taking control of this situation." Heavy boots thundered down the corridors as a specialized military unit poured into the lab. They carried sleek, unfamiliar weaponry, clearly designed for superhuman threats. Henry stepped protectively in front of the twins, his own hybrid abilities flaring to life. "You can't just barge in here," he growled. "These are our children." Colonel Hawthorne, a battle-hardened veteran with steel-gray eyes, met Henry's gaze unflinchingly. Your children are currently a threat to national security. Stand down, or we'll be forced to take action. The tension in the room ratcheted up several notches. Scientists huddled in corners, torn between fascination and fear. Security personnel nervously fingered their weapons, unsure where their loyalties should lie. Suddenly, the facility's security systems went haywire. Blast doors slammed shut, trapping some of Hawthorne's men in adjacent corridors. Surveillance cameras swiveled wildly, and the building's AI began spouting gibberish. Aiden, Ava whispered, recognizing her son's technological influence. But it wasn't just Aiden. Lyra's empathic abilities pulsed outward in waves, amplifying the fear and anger already present in the room. Soldiers gripped their weapons tighter, scientists cowered, and even the usually unflappable Dr. Thompson felt her heart racing. We need to calm them down, Henry said urgently to Ava. If their powers keep growing like this... His words were cut off by a deafening explosion that rocked the entire facility. Alarms screamed as the ventilation system filled with acrid smoke. We've been breached, Commander Steele's voice boomed over the intercom. Unknown hostiles have entered the building. Through the chaos, Dr. Marcus Reeves strode into the lab, flanked by a team of unnaturally enhanced individuals. Evolutech's artificially created hybrids. Their eyes glowed with an eerie red light, and their movements were twitchy, barely controlled. Did you really think your little facility could keep us out? Reeves sneered, his gaze fixed hungrily on Aiden and Lyra. The twins, sensing the new threat, reacted instinctively. Aiden's technological control expanded, causing every piece of equipment in the lab to come to life. Centrifuges whirled like deadly projectiles, and computer monitors exploded in showers of sparks. Lyra's empathic field intensified, pushing everyone in the room to the brink of emotional overload. Scientists broke down sobbing, soldiers turned on each other in rage, and even Colonel Hawthorne staggered under the onslaught of raw feeling. In the midst of this pandemonium, another tremor shook the building. This one was different, more focused, more controlled. A section of the reinforced wall crumbled, revealing the imposing figures of Commander John Steele and Zarvin. By authority of the Interspecies Cooperative Council, Steele's voice boomed, this situation is now under our jurisdiction. The room froze for a moment, all parties eyeing each other warily. Henry and Ava stood protectively near their children. Dr. Thompson and her team huddled around their equipment. Colonel Hawthorne's forces maintained their defensive positions, and Dr. Reeves's Evolutech hybrids twitched with hardly restrained energy. It was a powder keg waiting for a spark, and that spark came in the form of one of Evolutech's unstable hybrids losing control. With a primal scream, the creature unleashed a blast of raw energy that tore through the lab's containment field. The protective barriers holding back the twins' power-enhancing influence shattered. In an instant, the surrounding area was bathed in a wave of hybrid-inducing energy. From the facility to the nearby evacuated towns, thousands of people felt the first tingles of transformation. Colonel Hawthorne, his face a mask of unwavering grit, raised his hand. "Deploy the EMPs," he ordered. As the soldiers readied their experimental devices, Henry and Ava exchanged a look of understanding. They knew what they had to do. "Dr. Thompson," Henry called out, his voice steady despite the chaos. "The freestyle technique. Use it on us. Now." Dr. Thompson hesitated for a split second, then nodded. This was their best chance at finding a solution that didn't end in tragedy. As she prepared the untested treatment, the world around them continued to spiral into chaos. The fate of two species hung in the balance, with the hybrid twins at the center of the storm. Maelstrom of conflicting forces. The air crackled with tension as Colonel Hawthorne's men readied their EMP devices, poised to neutralize the twins' burgeoning powers. But before they could act, a commotion at the lab's entrance drew everyone's attention. A slender figure in an iridescent enviro suit strode purposefully into the room, her elongated fingers clutching a metallic case. "Stop," she called out, her voice carrying a musical lilt that instantly identified her as Wadi. "I am Dr. Alara Voss, and I bring a potential solution to this crisis." The newcomer's arrival caused a momentary lull in the chaos. Even Dr. Reeves and his evolutic hybrids paused, their twitching forms betraying scarcely controlled energy. Dr. Thompson stepped forward, her eyes wide with recognition. Dr. Voss, but you were working on a stabilizing compound for hybrid physiology, Dr. Voss finished, opening her case to reveal vials of shimmering liquid. I've been monitoring your work from afar, and when I realized the gravity of the situation, I knew I had to intervene. As Dr. Voss quickly conferred with Dr. Thompson and Zortal, sharing her findings in rapid-fire technical jargon, Henry and Ava exchanged worried glances. The strain of containing their children's escalating powers was evident in their drawn faces and trembling hands. We need to buy them time, Ava whispered, her voice hoarse with exhaustion. Henry nodded grimly, feeling the weight of their responsibility pressing down on him. He turned to face Colonel Hawthorne, who still held his men at the ready. Colonel, Henry said, his voice steady despite his fatigue, Dr. Voss's research could be our best chance at resolving this peacefully. Give the scientists a chance to work. Hawthorne's intense look flickered between Henry and the huddle of scientists now deep in discussion. After a tense moment, he lowered his hand. Secure the primary lab, he barked to his unit. Create a perimeter. Nothing gets in or out without my say-so. As Hawthorne's men moved to comply, Dr. Reeves snarled in frustration. You're making a mistake, he spat, his enhanced form pulsing with hardly restrained energy. Those children are the key to human evolution. We can't let this opportunity slip away. Without warning, one of Reeves's artificial hybrids lost control, unleashing a blast of raw power that tore through a nearby console. The room erupted into chaos once more, as Evolutech forces pressed their attack, determined to reach Aiden and Lyra. Commander Steele and Zarvin sprang into action, their movements a fluid dance of human combat skills and Wadi technology. They outmaneuvered several of Evolutech's assault teams, driving them back from critical systems. We need to reach the power core, Steele shouted to Zarvin over the din of battle. If they take control of it, we're finished. As they fought their way through the facility, Henry and Ava stood firm, shielding their children from the onslaught. But the effort was taking its toll. Ava's skin had lost its ethereal glow, while Henry's enhanced strength was visibly waning. Suddenly, Aiden's eyes blazed with an intense light. The facility's systems came alive around them, security protocols activating of their own accord. Blast doors slammed shut, cutting off Evolutech's advance. He's interfacing with the AI, Dr. Thompson gasped, watching in awe as Aiden's consciousness merged with the facility's mainframe. Beside him, Lyra's empathic field expanded, washing over the room in waves of calm. The frenzied Evolutech hybrids faltered, their aggression giving way to confusion. Some even turned on their comrades, creating chaos in the attacking force. Dr. Reeves, now fully transformed into a monstrous hybrid, roared in frustration. Enough game, he bellowed, charging towards the twins with inhuman speed. But before he could reach them, a shimmering barrier sprang to life, repelling his attack. Aiden and Lyra stood hand in hand, their combined powers creating a fortress of energy around them. In the relative safety of the secured lab, Dr. Voss worked frantically alongside Dr. Thompson and Zortal. We've made a breakthrough, she announced, holding up a vial of luminescent fluid. But there's a problem. We need a significant amount of sacred nectar to stabilize the compound. Henry's heart sank as he realized the implications. The sacred nectar was the enzyme-rich substance central to the ritual that had transformed him and Ava into hybrids. Producing it now would require him to undergo a dangerous procedure that could strip him of his abilities, or worse. He met Ava's gaze, seeing his own determination mirrored in her eyes. Do it, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. It's the only way to save our children. As Ava began preparations for the extraction ritual, drawing upon her knowledge as High Priestess, the battle outside the lab intensified. Dr. Reeves, consumed by his twisted vision of human evolution, led a final desperate assault on the twins' position. The fate of two species hung in the balance as science, military might, and unchecked ambition converged on the heart of the ICMT facility. And at the center of it all, Two extraordinary children stood as a bridge between worlds, their power and potential both a promise and a threat to the future of human-body relations. As the twins' power surged, threatening to overwhelm the entire facility, Henry locked eyes with Ava. They both knew what had to be done. "Dr. Thompson," Henry called out, his voice strained but resolute. "We need to begin the extraction ritual. Now." Dr. Thompson nodded grimly, her face etched with concern. "We've prepared a secure area for the procedure. Follow me." As they made their way through the chaos-filled corridors, Commander Steele and Zarvin took point, clearing a path through the melee. The sounds of battle echoed through the facility, energy weapons discharging, artificial hybrids roaring, and the ominous creaking of stressed metal as Aiden's technopathic abilities warped the very structure around them. They reached a hastily converted laboratory, now adorned with a mix of wadi spiritual symbols and cutting-edge medical equipment. Henry lay down on the central platform, his fists tight in anticipation of what was to come. Ava stood at his head, her hands hovering inches above his temples. "I'll guide you through this," she said softly, her voice barely audible above the distant sounds of combat. "Focus on my voice, on our bond." As Ava began to chant in the ancient Wadi tongue, Dr. Thompson and her team monitored Henry's vital signs. The air in the room grew thick with an otherworldly energy, shimmering with potential. Outside the ritual chamber, Colonel Hawthorne received an incoming transmission. His face hardened as he listened to the orders from his superiors. Termination. A last resort if the situation couldn't be contained. He glanced at the sealed door of the ritual room, then at the battle raging beyond. With a deep breath, he made his decision. "Delay that order," he responded. "We still have options on the table." In the main laboratory, Dr. Voss worked feverishly alongside Zortal, their fingers flying over holographic displays as they refined the stabilizing compound formula. "We're close," Dr. Voss muttered, her elongated fingers trembling slightly from exhaustion. "But each hybrid's physiology is unique. We need to calibrate the compound individually." Zortal's multifaceted eyes widened in alarm. "That complicates things significantly. We don't have time to create personalized formulas for every affected individual." Before Dr. Voss could respond, the entire facility shuddered. In the containment area, Aiden and Lyra's combined powers had created a swirling vortex of energy, warping the very fabric of reality around them. Computer systems throughout the building flickered and died, only to spring back to life moments later, now pulsing with an eerie alien intelligence. Commander Steele's voice crackled over the comm system. "We've got a situation here. Reeves and his top lieutenants have breached the inner defenses. We're falling back to critical positions, but we can't hold them off forever." In the ritual chamber, Henry's body convulsed as waves of energy poured from him. The sacred nectar, a luminescent fluid, began to collect in specially designed receptacles. Ava's chanting grew more intense, her own hybrid traits flaring as she channeled her knowledge and power into the ceremony. Dr. Thompson watched the monitors with growing concern. "His hybrid traits are deteriorating rapidly," she reported, her voice tight with worry. "We need to stop soon, or the damage could be permanent." Ava's eyes snapped open, glowing with an inner fire. "Not yet," she said, her voice resonating with otherworldly power. "We need more. He can handle it." As Henry's life force ebbed, the battle outside reached a fever pitch. Dr. Reeves, now a nightmarish amalgamation of human and hybrid traits, tore through the facility's defenses with minimal resistance. But as he neared the containment area, something unexpected happened. Several of the artificial hybrids under his command suddenly turned, their eyes glazed over with a strange empathic light. Lyra's growing powers had touched their minds, awakening buried emotions and loyalties. "What are you doing?" Reeves roared as his own creations turned against him. "I gave you life. I gave you power." One of the hybrids, a former soldier named Carter, stepped forward. "You gave us pain," he growled, his voice distorted by his transformation. "You turned us into monsters, but he gestured towards the containment area, "they showed us another way." As Reeves found himself battling his own forces, Commander Steele seized the opportunity. "All units, push forward," he ordered. "We need to secure a path to the twins." In the ritual chamber, Henry gave a final, gut-wrenching cry as the last of the sacred nectar was extracted. His body went limp, his hybrid traits now all but gone. Ava immediately began a Wadi healing technique, her hands glowing with bioluminescent energy as she fought to stabilize her husband. Dr. Thompson scooped up the vials of sacred nectar, her hands shaking slightly. "We've got what we need. Now it's up to Dr. Voss and her team." As they emerged from the ritual chamber, they found Colonel Hawthorne waiting, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. "The stabilizing compound," he said urgently. "Is it ready?" Dr. Thompson nodded grimly. "We're about to find out." They raced towards the main laboratory, the sounds of battle growing ever closer. The fate of 2 species hung in the balance, with time running perilously short. The fate of 2 species hung in the balance, with time running perilously low. The laboratory doors burst open as Dr. Thompson and her team rushed in, vials of sacred nectar clutched tightly in their hands. Dr. Voss's eyes widened at the sight, her fingers flying across holographic displays with renewed vigor. "We have it," Dr. Thompson announced breathlessly. "How much longer?" "Minutes," Dr. Voss replied, her elongated fingers trembling as she worked. "We're calibrating the final formula now." A thunderous boom shook the facility, causing instruments to rattle and alarms to blare. Colonel Hawthorne's voice crackled over the intercom. "Reeves has breached the outer defenses. All units, fall back to critical positions." Henry, still weak from the extraction ritual, pushed himself to his feet. Ava steadied him, her hands glowing with bioluminescent energy as she continued to channel her healing abilities. "We need to get to the children," Henry said, his voice hoarse but determined. Ava nodded, her eyes flashing with a mix of fear and purpose. "I'll clear a path." As they made their way out of the lab, Commander Steele and Zarvin appeared, leading a group of hybrid human soldiers. "We'll escort you to the containment area," Steele said, his face grim. "It's a war zone out there." The group moved swiftly through the chaos-filled corridors, the sounds of battle growing louder with each step. Artificial hybrids clashed with Evolutech forces, their inhuman roars echoing off the walls. Ava used her hybrid abilities to deflect energy blasts and debris, creating a protective bubble around Henry and the scientists. As they neared the containment area, the air grew thick with crackling energy. The very structure of the facility seemed to warp and bend, reality itself twisting under the strain of Aiden and Lyra's combined powers. Suddenly, a monstrous figure burst through a nearby wall. Dr. Reeves, now a grotesque amalgamation of human and hybrid traits, stood before them. His body pulsated with uncontrolled energy, his eyes wild with madness and ambition. "The children are mine," he roared, lunging forward. Commander Steele and Zarvin moved as one, intercepting Reeves with a coordinated attack. Energy weapons and Wadi technology clashed against Reeves's mutated form, but he seemed to shrug off their assault. "Go!" Steele shouted to the others. "We'll hold him off." Henry and Ava pressed on with Dr. Thompson and Dr. Voss close behind. They reached the entrance to the containment area, only to find it sealed by a swirling vortex of energy. Inside, Aiden and Lyra stood hand in hand, their eyes glowing with otherworldly power. The twins seemed to be at the center of a storm, reality bending around them as their abilities continued to grow unchecked. Henry stepped forward, his hand outstretched towards the energy barrier. "Aiden! Lyra!" he called out, his voice barely audible above the roar of the vortex. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, as if responding to some unheard call, the energy field parted just enough for Henry to step through. The instant he made contact with his children, a surge of power coursed through him. His hybrid traits, diminished by the extraction ritual, flared back to life with renewed strength. Ava gasped as she watched the connection form between Henry and the twins. She could feel it too, a resonance that spoke of their unique family bond. Using this link as an anchor, she pushed through the energy barrier, joining her family at the eye of the storm. Dr. Thompson and Dr. Voss worked feverishly at the edge of the containment area, making final adjustments to the stabilizing compound. "It's ready," Dr. Voss called out, her voice barely audible above the chaos. Just then, Dr. Reeves burst into the room, having overpowered Commander Steele and Zarvin. His mutated form surged with unstable energy as he charged towards the twins. Ava reacted instinctively, channeling her hybrid abilities in her role as High Priestess. She thrust her hands forward, unleashing a blast of pure energy that caught Reeves mid-leap, sending him crashing into a nearby console. "Now!" Ava shouted to Dr. Thompson. "Administer the compound." Dr. Thompson darted forward, syringes in hand. With practiced precision, she simultaneously injected Aiden and Lyra with the stabilizing agent. For a heartbeat, nothing seemed to change. Then, like a wave receding from the shore, the swirling vortex of energy began to subside. Aiden and Lyra's eyes cleared, their expressions shifting from blank concentration to awareness. The facility stopped shaking, and the air no longer crackled with uncontrolled power. "Mom? Dad?" Aiden's voice was small, almost childlike in its uncertainty. Before Henry or Ava could respond, a pulse of energy radiated outward from the twins. It swept through the facility, touching every hybrid within range. The artificial hybrids created by Evolitech stumbled, their unstable powers either normalizing or dissipating entirely. Dr. Reeves, caught in the wave of stabilizing energy, let out an agonized howl. His mutated form began to break down, unable to withstand the normalizing effect. As he collapsed to the ground, Lyra stepped forward, her empathic abilities reaching out to ease his pain. In that moment of clarity, Reeves' eyes met Lyra's. "I only wanted to evolve," he gasped before falling unconscious. As the immediate crisis subsided, an eerie calm settled over the facility. Henry and Ava embraced their children, tears of relief streaming down their faces. Around them, the sounds of battle faded, replaced by the confused murmurs of those affected by the stabilizing wave. Commander Steele limped into the room, supported by Zarvin. "Status report," he called out, his voice hoarse but commanding. Dr. Thompson looked up from her scanners, her eyes wide with amazement. "The stabilizing compound worked, but it's done more than we anticipated. The energy wave is still spreading, affecting hybrids across an ever-widening area." Colonel Hawthorne's voice crackled over the intercom. "We're receiving reports from outside the facility. Hybrid individuals are suddenly gaining control over their abilities. What the hell is going on in there?" As the implications of what had just occurred began to sink in, Henry looked at his family, then at the scientists and soldiers around them. "I think," he said slowly, "we've just changed everything." The stabilizing wave continued to spread, its effects rippling out into the world beyond the ICMT facility. As the dust settled and the immediate danger passed, those present knew that this was not an end, but a new beginning. The landscape of human-Wadi relations had been irrevocably altered, and the full consequences of this day's events were yet to be understood. Realized, the world they knew had changed forever, and they stood at the epicenter of this monumental shift. As the days passed and the immediate crisis subsided, the full impact of the stabilization event began to unfold. The ICMT facility buzzed with activity as scientists, military personnel, and government officials worked tirelessly to understand and manage the aftermath. Henry and Ava found themselves at the heart of this whirlwind, their roles as parents, scientists, and hybrid pioneers pulling them in multiple directions. The strain of recent events caused great concern upon them, and as the adrenaline of crisis faded, they began to notice subtle changes in their relationship. One evening, as they sat in their quarters reviewing data on the stabilization wave's effects, Henry's hand began to glow with an otherworldly light. Startled, he dropped the tablet he was holding, sending it clattering to the floor. "Henry?" Ava's voice was tinged with concern. "Are you all right?" He flexed his fingers, watching as the glow faded. "I'm not sure. My abilities, they're fluctuating. One moment I feel like I did before the extraction ritual. The next..." He trailed off, unable to find the words to describe the unpredictable surges of power he'd been experiencing. Ava reached out to touch his arm, her own hybrid traits flickering in response. The connection between them, once a steady current of shared energy, now felt erratic and unbalanced. "We need to address this," Ava said softly, "not just for our sake, but for Aiden and Lyra too. They need us to be strong, to guide them through this new reality we've created." Henry nodded, his expression troubled. You're right, but how? We're in uncharted territory here. A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Dr. Thompson entered, her face etched with a mix of excitement and exhaustion. I hope I'm not intruding, she said, but I have some news you need to hear. She quickly briefed them on the latest findings regarding the stabilizing compound's effects. As she explained the secondary phase of genetic adaptation they were observing in some individuals, Henry and Ava exchanged glances, recognizing the symptoms in themselves. There's more, Dr. Thompson continued. The Interspecies Cooperative Council is proposing a new joint human-Wadi research initiative. They want you two to lead it. The weight of this new responsibility settled over them, adding to the already complex web of challenges they faced. As Dr. Thompson left, Ava turned to Henry, her eyes shimmering with a mix of dedication and vulnerability. We need to reconnect, to find our balance again, for ourselves, for our children, and for everything that's to come. Henry took her hand, feeling the familiar tingle of their hybrid connection. What do you suggest? Ava's expression softened, a hint of her high priestess wisdom shining through. There's a Wadi bonding ritual, traditionally used for couples. It's never been attempted with hybrids before, but I think it might be exactly what we need. Over the next few weeks, as they juggled their responsibilities and prepared for their new roles, Henry and Ava began the intensive process of preparing for the ritual. Under the guidance of Wadi elders, they learned the intricacies of the ceremony, its history, and its spiritual significance. The ritual required the production and exchange of their sacred nectar, a process that proved challenging given the recent changes in their physiology. Each attempt to generate the luminescent fluid was an exercise in concentration and intimacy, forcing them to confront the physical and emotional changes they'd experienced since the stabilization event. As the day of the ritual approached, tension mounted within the ICMT facility. The ceremony would take place in a specially constructed chamber designed to mimic the sacred spaces of the Wadi homeworld. Scientists and security personnel worked around the clock to ensure every detail was perfect, aware of the potential risks involved in such an unprecedented event. On the morning of the ritual, Henry and Ava stood before the chamber doors, their hands clasped tightly. The air around them hummed with anticipation and residual hybrid energy. Are you ready? Henry asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ava nodded, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of love and dedication. Together, she said. As the door slid open, they stepped into the chamber, leaving behind the world they knew and entering a realm of possibility and transformation. The ritual was about to begin, and with it, a new chapter in the story of human-Wadi integration. As the doors of the ritual chamber slid open, Henry and Ava emerged, their skin glowing with an ethereal light. The Wadi bonding ritual had been intense, pushing their hybrid physiology to its limits, but the results were undeniable. They moved in perfect synchronization, their steps matching as if choreographed. Dr. Thompson rushed forward, scanner in hand. Remarkable, she breathed, studying the readings. Your hybrid traits have not only stabilized but harmonized. It's as if you're operating on the same wavelength. Henry flexed his fingers, watching as tiny arcs of energy danced between them. It feels different, stronger, but also more controlled. Ava nodded, her eyes shimmering with an otherworldly gleam. We're truly in balance now. I can feel Henry's presence, even when we're not touching. Their moment of wonder was short-lived as Colonel Hawthorne approached, his expression grave. I hate to interrupt, but we've received an urgent communique from the Interspecies Cooperative Council. They're requesting your immediate presence. Within hours, Henry and Ava found themselves standing before the council, their new roles as co-directors of a groundbreaking research initiative laid out before them. The weight of responsibility settled on their shoulders as they listened to the plans for a state-of-the-art facility on a remote Pacific island. This is an opportunity to push the boundaries of our understanding, Council Member Jarvis explained, her Wadi features animated with excitement. Your work could reshape the future of both our species. As the weeks passed, Henry and Ava threw themselves into their new roles. The island facility quickly took shape, A marvel of human and Wadi engineering, they worked tirelessly, overseeing the construction and assembling a team of the brightest minds from both worlds. One evening, as they stood on the balcony of their new living quarters overlooking the facility, Ava caught sight of her reflection in the glass. She gasped, drawing Henry's attention. "What is it?" he asked, moving to her side. Ava held out her arm, watching as the skin seemed to shimmer in the fading light. "Look at this. It's like we're glowing from within." Henry examined his own skin, noticing the subtle iridescence that hadn't been there before. "Another side effect of the ritual, perhaps? We should have Dr. Thompson run some tests." As they settled into their new routines, the facility buzzed with activity. Dr. Thompson and her team worked tirelessly on replicating the stabilizing compound, while Zortal led studies on long-term hybridization effects. Aiden and Lyra, now looking more like teenagers than children, thrived in their specially designed habitat, their accelerated development closely monitored. The first signs of trouble came during a routine lab inspection. Dr. Chen, a human geneticist, dropped a vial containing hybrid biological samples. As she cleaned up the spill, her hand brushed against the liquid. Within days, she reported enhanced sensory perception. Similar incidents followed. A security guard exhibited increased strength after exposure to hybrid sweat during a training exercise. A Wadi researcher found herself able to understand human languages she'd never studied after handling hybrid brain tissue samples. Henry and Ava called an emergency meeting of the senior staff. "We need to implement stricter safety protocols," Henry insisted, pacing the conference room. "These uncontrolled exposures are too risky." Ava nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. "We also need to understand why this is happening now. The stabilizing compound was supposed to prevent this kind of uncontrolled trait transfer." As they grappled with these new challenges, reports began flooding in from around the world. Individuals with no known hybrid ancestry were suddenly developing abilities. The phenomenon seemed concentrated in areas with high hybrid populations. The Interspecies Cooperative Council convened an emergency session, demanding answers. Henry and Ava found themselves under intense scrutiny, their every decision questioned and analyzed. During a particularly heated debate, Ava felt a familiar tingle in her palms. She looked down to see droplets of luminescent fluid forming on her skin, the sacred nectar they had produced during the bonding ritual. A spark of inspiration struck her. "Henry," she whispered, drawing him aside, "what if we could use this to our advantage? Create a controlled transformation process?" Henry's eyes widened as he grasped her meaning. A way to study the hybridization process in real time under controlled conditions. They presented their proposal to the council, a bold experiment using their enhanced ability to produce the sacred nectar as a catalyst for supervised hybrid transformation. The ensuing debate was fierce, with passionate arguments on both sides. In the end, a compromise was reached. A limited trial would be allowed, with strict oversight and rigorous safety measures in place. Back at the facility, Henry and Ava worked closely with Dr. Thompson and Zortal to design a specialized transformation chamber. It combined elements of the Wadi bonding ritual with cutting-edge human medical technology, creating a hybrid pod unlike anything seen before. As the day of the first trial approached, tension mounted. Commander John Steele, ever the soldier, had volunteered to be the first subject. He stood before the pod, his eyebrows furrowed. "Are you sure about this, Commander?" Henry asked, making final adjustments to the equipment. Steele nodded. "Someone has to be first. Might as well be me." As Steele entered the pod, Henry and Ava took their positions. They clasped hands, feeling the surge of their synchronized abilities. At a signal from Dr. Thompson, they began to produce the sacred nectar, watching as it was vaporized and introduced into the chamber. The transformation began slowly at first. Steele's muscle mass increased visibly, his posture straightening. His eyes, when they opened, showed heightened awareness, darting around with incredible speed. Suddenly, alarms blared. Steele's vitals spiked dangerously, his body convulsing within the pod. "We need to stabilize him!" Dr. Thompson shouted over the noise. Without hesitation, Henry and Ava stepped forward. They placed their hands on the pod, channeling their hybrid energy directly into the chamber. The world around them faded as they focused entirely on Steele, guiding his transformation, steadying his fluctuating physiology. Time seemed to stretch. Henry and Ava poured more and more of themselves into the process, their own bodies beginning to tremble with the strain. Just as they felt they couldn't hold on any longer, the alarms fell silent. The pod hissed open, releasing a cloud of luminescent mist. Steele emerged, his skin shimmering with the same iridescence as Henry and Ava's. He took a shaky step forward, then another, his movements becoming more confident with each passing second. "How do you feel, Commander?" Dr. Thompson asked, approaching with a scanner. Steele flexed his hands, a look of wonder on his face. "I feel incredible, like I could run a marathon or lift a car." As the medical team swarmed around Steele, Henry and Ava sank to the floor, exhausted. The strain of their intervention had taken its toll. "We did it," Ava whispered, leaning against Henry. He nodded, too tired to speak. They had succeeded, but at what cost? And what would this mean for the future of their research, for the delicate balance between humans and Wadi? As news of the successful transformation spread, the facility was inundated with requests from both humans and Wadi, eager to undergo the process themselves. Henry and Ava found themselves at the center of a growing storm, their every decision scrutinized by an increasingly divided public. The transformation pod stood silent, waiting for its next subject. The question hung in the air, unspoken but impossible to ignore. Where do we go from here? Here. The question hung in the air as Henry and Ava exchanged a weary glance, their skin still shimmering from the intense effort of stabilizing Commander Steele's transformation. Their moment of contemplation was cut short as alarms blared throughout the facility. Dr. Thompson burst into the room, her face flushed with excitement and concern. "You need to see this," she said, gesturing for them to follow. Henry and Ava hurried after her, their fatigue momentarily forgotten. In the main control room, screens displayed a flurry of incoming messages and data streams. The successful transformation of Commander Steele had not gone unnoticed. "We're being inundated with requests," Dr. Thompson explained, her fingers flying over a holographic keyboard. "Humans and Wadi alike, all clamoring for the chance to undergo the hybridization process." Henry leaned in, his eyes scanning the flood of information. "This is overwhelming. We can't possibly accommodate all these requests." Ava nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. "We need a system, a way to screen potential candidates. Not everyone will be suitable for transformation." As if in response to their concerns, a priority message flashed across the main screen. The Interspecies Cooperative Council was convening an emergency session to address the situation. Over the next few days, Henry and Ava found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. They worked tirelessly with the council to establish a rigorous screening process for hybridization candidates. Their unique abilities and experience made them invaluable in assessing the compatibility of volunteers. But as the hybridization program gained momentum, new challenges emerged. During a routine inspection of the facility's grounds, Dr. Thompson made a startling discovery. "Look at this," she said, leading Henry and Ava to a small clearing near the facility's perimeter. The vegetation was unlike anything they had seen before. Plants grew at impossible speeds, their leaves shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence. Henry knelt to examine a flower, its petals pulsing with bioluminescent energy. "It's as if the plants have been hybridized." Ava's eyes widened as realization dawned. "The sacred nectar. Our increased production must be affecting the ecosystem." Further investigation revealed the extent of the changes. The island's wildlife exhibited signs of enhanced intelligence and physical capabilities. A group of monkeys displayed problem-solving skills far beyond their species' norm, while schools of fish in the surrounding waters moved with uncanny coordination. Dr. Thompson's team worked around the clock to analyze soil and water samples. The results were conclusive. Traces of the sacred nectar had seeped into the island's ecosystem, triggering widespread mutations. The Interspecies Cooperative Council reacted swiftly to this new development. Within hours, plans were drawn up for a massive containment dome to envelop the entire research facility. As construction on the dome began, Henry and Ava turned their attention to their children. Aiden and Lyra, now physically equivalent to teenagers, had been displaying increasingly powerful abilities. In the children's specially designed habitat, Henry watched in awe as Aiden manipulated the room's electronic systems with a mere thought. Screens flickered to life, doors opened and closed, and in complex data streams danced across holographic displays. Nearby, Lyra stood with her eyes closed, her hands outstretched. The air around her shimmered, and Henry felt a sudden shift in temperature. Outside the habitat's windows, clouds began to form, swirling in response to Lyra's subtle movements. "Their powers are growing stronger," Ava said, her voice a mix of pride and concern. "We need to help them learn control." As Henry and Ava grappled with their children's development, tensions were rising in the world beyond their island sanctuary. News of the hybridization program had sparked fierce debate and growing opposition. The emergence of the Earth First Coalition, led by the charismatic Senator Marcus Graves, added fuel to the fire. Their rallying cry of "protect human purity" resonated with those who feared the implications of human-Wadi integration. In response to the mounting pressure, the Interspecies Cooperative Council made a bold decision. They would organize a public demonstration of hybrid abilities, showcasing the potential benefits of the program. The day of the demonstration arrived, and Henry and Ava found themselves in a state-of-the-art broadcasting studio within the facility. Commander Steele and a group of other successfully transformed hybrids stood ready, their skins shimmering with impossibly strong energy. As the broadcast began, Henry and Ava took turns explaining the science behind hybridization, while the hybrid participants demonstrated their enhanced abilities. Commander Steele lifted impossible weights with ease, while others displayed feats of mental acuity that left the audience stunned. The demonstration was going smoothly until Michael Thompson, a former Olympic athlete, stepped forward for his turn. As he began to showcase his enhanced speed and agility, something went wrong. His movements became erratic, his skin pulsing with uncontrolled energy. "He's losing control," Ava gasped, recognizing the signs of a critical energy buildup. Without hesitation, Henry and Ava sprang into action. They moved in perfect synchronization, their hands outstretched as they generated an energy field around Thompson. The strain was immense, and they could feel their own powers begin to falter. Suddenly, they felt a surge of additional energy flowing into their efforts. Through the chaos, they saw Aiden and Lyra, their children, standing at the edge of the room. The twins' eyes glowed with intensity as they channeled their unique abilities to amplify their parents' energy field. With the combined power of all four hybrids, they managed to contain Thompson's out-of-control abilities. As the energy dissipated, Thompson collapsed to the ground, unconscious but stable. The studio fell silent, the gravity of what had just transpired hanging heavy in the air. The live feed continued to broadcast, having captured every moment of the crisis and its resolution. As medical teams rushed to attend to Thompson, Henry and Ava exchanged a look of exhaustion and uncertainty. They had averted disaster, but at what cost? The incident had been witnessed by millions, and its implications would be far-reaching. The containment dome loomed above them, nearing completion. It stood as a stark reminder of the challenges they faced, the delicate balance between progress and safety, between integration and isolation. As they waited for news of Thompson's condition, Henry and Ava knew that this was only the beginning. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with scientific mysteries to unravel and societal fears to address. But as they looked at their children, still glowing with the aftermath of their power use, they felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as a family, as scientists, and as living symbols of what humanity and Wadi could achieve in unity. Harmony they could achieve together. As the containment dome's construction neared completion, casting long shadows across the research facility, Henry and Ava found themselves facing a new challenge. The Interspecies Cooperative Council, deeply concerned by Michael Thompson's loss of control during the public demonstration, ordered a comprehensive review of all hybrid individuals. Dr. Thompson approached them with a grim expression. "The Council wants every hybrid to undergo a series of rigorous physical and psychological tests. They're worried about long-term stability." Henry nodded, his exhaustion evident. We'll do whatever it takes to ensure the safety of the program. Over the next few days, the facility buzzed with activity as hybrid after hybrid underwent the battery of tests. Henry and Ava observed from behind a one-way mirror as Commander Steele lifted weights, solved complex puzzles, and underwent brain scans. But as the test progressed, something alarming became apparent. Ava noticed it first, her keen hybrid senses picking up subtle changes in Steele's physiology. "Henry, look," she whispered, pointing to the monitor displaying Steele's vitals. "His hybrid markers are decreasing." Dr. Thompson confirmed their fears. It's not just Steele. Several hybrids are showing signs of regression to their original human state. Panic spread through the facility as the news broke. Hybrids who had embraced their new abilities now faced the prospect of losing them. Commander Steele, once the picture of hybrid perfection, struggled to lift weights he had easily managed just days before. In her lab, Dr. Thompson worked tirelessly to uncover the cause of the regression. Henry and Ava joined her, poring over data and running simulations. Finally, after a sleepless night, Dr. Thompson made a breakthrough. "It's the enzymes in your sacred nectar," she explained, pulling up a holographic model. "The hybrid state requires constant exposure to maintain stability. Without it, the transformations break down over time." Henry's mind raced with the implications. "We need a way to stabilize the transformations permanently." Ava's eyes lit up with an idea. "What if we created a concentrated booster, something that could reinforce the hybrid state long-term?" Dr. Thompson nodded slowly. "It's possible, but producing something that potent would be incredibly taxing on your systems." Henry and Ava exchanged a determined look. "We'll do it," Henry said firmly. As preparations for the extraction began, tension filled the air. Unbeknownst to the research team, a group of Earth First Coalition operatives had infiltrated the facility, disguised as maintenance workers. Led by Senator Marcus Graves' most trusted lieutenant, they moved silently through the complex, planting devices and gathering intelligence. Henry and Ava entered the specially designed extraction chamber, their skin already beginning to glow with hybrid energy. As the process started, they gripped each other's hands tightly, feeling the immense strain on their bodies. Outside the chamber, Aiden and Lyra watched with growing concern. They could sense their parents' distress, their own hybrid abilities amplifying their empathic connection. "Something's wrong," Lyra whispered to her brother. "It's too much for them." Aiden nodded, his eyes scanning the facility's systems through his technopathic link. Suddenly, he stiffened. "We're not alone. There are intruders in the building." Without hesitation, the twins sprang into action. Aiden's eyes glowed as he interfaced with the facility's security systems, locking down key areas and rerouting the intruders away from critical sections. Lyra stretched out with her empathic abilities, sending waves of confusion and disorientation towards the Earth First Coalition operatives. Inside the extraction chamber, Henry and Ava fought against the overwhelming surge of energy coursing through their bodies. The concentrated sacred nectar flowed into collection vials, glowing with an intensity they had never seen before. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. The Earth First Coalition operatives, realizing their cover was blown, abandoned stealth for direct action. They converged on the extraction chamber, believing it to be the key to the entire hybridization program. Commander Steele, hearing the commotion, shook off his fatigue and rallied the security team. Despite his weakened state, he led the charge against the intruders, his military training kicking in as he coordinated a defense of the facility. As the battle raged outside, the Earth First operatives managed to breach the extraction chamber's outer defenses. In their desperation to sabotage the process, they overloaded the chamber's power systems, causing a massive surge of energy. Inside the chamber, Henry and Ava screamed as the surge hit them, amplifying their output to unprecedented levels. The room filled with blinding light as a wave of hybrid energy exploded outward, shorting out every electronic system in the facility. For a moment, everything went dark and silent. Then slowly, emergency systems began to flicker back to life. As the dust settled, Dr. Thompson and her team rushed to assess the situation. What they found left them in awe. The supercharged sacred nectar had permeated the entire containment dome, creating a hybrid-saturated environment. The regressing hybrids, including Commander Steele, felt their abilities stabilize and strengthen. But the effects didn't stop there. Non-hybrid humans within the dome began to experience rapid changes, their bodies adapting to the hybrid-rich atmosphere. Even the Earth-First Coalition operatives, caught in the midst of their attack, found themselves undergoing unexpected transformations. As Henry and Ava emerged from the chamber, weakened but alive, they were confronted with the chaos their creation had unleashed. The facility was in disarray, with newly transformed hybrids grappling with their sudden abilities, while the Earth-First operatives faced the ironic twist of becoming the very thing they had sought to destroy. Dr. Thompson approached them, her face a mix of concern and excitement. The Council has ordered a complete quarantine of the island. No one goes in or out until we can fully understand what's happened here. Henry looked at Ava, then at their children who had rushed to their side. The weight of their new reality settled upon them. They had succeeded in creating a solution to hybrid instability. But at what cost? As the containment dome sealed them off from the outside world, they knew that the true challenges were only beginning. As the containment dome sealed them off from the outside world, they knew that the true challenges were only just starting to unfold. The aftermath of the mass hybridization event plunged the facility into chaos. Alarms blared as newly transformed individuals grappled with their sudden abilities, their bodies glowing with unfamiliar energy. Henry and Ava, still weakened from the intense extraction process, leaned on each other for support as they surveyed the scene. Dr. Thompson rushed towards them, her lab coat singed and her hair disheveled. "We need to stabilize the situation quickly," she said, her voice urgent. "The supercharged nectar is still permeating the air. We don't know the long-term effects of prolonged exposure." Henry nodded, his mind racing. "We'll need to establish some sort of order. Ava, can you sense anything about the overall state of the hybrids?" Ava closed her eyes, concentrating, her brow furrowed as she tapped into her amplified abilities. "It's, overwhelming. So many new minds, all in turmoil, but I can feel their energy stabilizing, becoming more controlled." As they spoke, Commander Steele approached, his movements fluid and powerful. The regression he had experienced earlier seemed to have reversed completely. "Dr. Reeves, Dr. Thompson, we need to act fast. I've already begun organizing our original hybrid volunteers to help contain the situation." Steele's quick thinking proved invaluable as they worked to manage the chaos. The original hybrids, now stronger than ever, fanned out across the facility, guiding newly transformed individuals to designated areas for assessment and basic training. Meanwhile, Henry and Ava found themselves dealing with an unexpected group, the Earth-First Coalition operatives. These former saboteurs, now unwilling hybrids, huddled in a corner, their expressions a mix of fear and confusion. "What have you done to us?" one of them demanded, his skin pulsing with energy. Henry stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "We didn't intend for this to happen, but now we're all in this together. We can help you understand and control these new abilities." As days passed, the situation within the dome began to stabilize. Dr. Thompson worked tirelessly in her lab, analyzing blood samples and running simulations. She emerged one evening, her eyes wide with excitement and trepidation. "The changes are accelerating," she announced to Henry and Ava. "The hybrid physiology is evolving at an unprecedented rate, and it's not just the people. I've detected changes in the plant and animal life immediately outside the dome." Henry frowned, processing the implications. "We need to inform the Council. This could spread beyond the island if we're not careful." As if on cue, Aiden burst into the room, his eyes glowing with an eerie blue light. "Mom, Dad, you need to see this," he said, his voice tinged with awe and worry. They followed him to the control room, where Lyra stood before a bank of monitors. The screen showed a fleet of ships approaching the island, forming a tight perimeter. "They're quarantining us," Lyra said softly, her empathic abilities allowing her to sense the tension even from a distance. The implications of their isolation hit home. They were cut off from the outside world, left to manage their resources and solve their problems internally. Henry looked at Ava, seeing his own mix of perseverance and concern reflected in her eyes. "We'll adapt," he said firmly. "We have to." Over the next few weeks, life within the dome settled into a new rhythm. Commander Steele's makeshift training program expanded, helping newly transformed hybrids harness their abilities. The former Earth First operatives, initially resistant, began to integrate into the community, some even volunteering to assist with ongoing research. Henry and Ava found their own abilities had been significantly amplified. They discovered they could manipulate the hybrid energy field within the dome to a limited extent, using this new power to help stabilize some of the more volatile transformations. One afternoon, as they worked with a group of newly transformed hybrids, Henry noticed something strange. The individuals they were helping seemed to be responding to unspoken instructions, moving in perfect synchronization. "Ava," he whispered, "are you seeing this?" She nodded, her eyes wide. "It's like they're connected somehow. I can feel it." Dr. Thompson, who had been observing nearby, approached with a look of excitement. "It's not just them," she said. "I've been detecting similar patterns across the dome. It seems we're developing some form of collective consciousness." The implications of this development were staggering. As they discussed the potential ramifications, Aiden and Lyra joined them, their own abilities having evolved dramatically. "We can help manage it," Aiden said, his technopathic link to the dome systems stronger than ever. "Between my connection to the infrastructure and Lyra's empathic abilities, we can help facilitate communication and maintain order." As they worked to understand and harness this new phenomenon, Dr. Thompson made another breakthrough. She burst into Henry and Ava's quarters one night, clutching a tablet filled with complex formulas. "I've done it," she exclaimed. "I've isolated the key compounds in the supercharged nectar. We might be able to synthesize it artificially." The potential of this discovery was immediately apparent. It could provide a stable, long-term solution for maintaining hybrid transformations without relying solely on Henry and Ava's abilities. However, it also opened up a host of ethical questions about the wider distribution of hybrid abilities. As they grappled with these issues, life within the dome continued to evolve. The hybrid community grew more cohesive, their shared experiences forging strong bonds. Even the plant and animal life within the dome seemed to be adapting, creating a unique ecosystem unlike anything seen before. Yet as they worked to build their new society, they couldn't ignore the world beyond the dome. The quarantine ships maintained their vigil, a constant reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. The future remained uncertain, but within the confines of their hybrid haven, hope continued to grow. Flourish. The hybrid community within the dome had weathered the initial storm of transformation, but now faced the daunting task of building a sustainable future. Henry and Ava, recognizing the need for structured leadership, called a meeting of key figures from various groups within the dome. They gathered in the facility's main conference room, a space now humming with the energy of its hybrid occupants. "We need to establish a governing body," Henry began, his voice carrying across the room. "A council that represents all of us." Ava nodded, her eyes scanning the faces around the table. "This isn't just about survival anymore. We're building a new society here." Commander Steele leaned forward, his posture reflecting his military background. "Agreed. We need representatives from the original research team, our volunteer subjects, and—" He paused, glancing at a group of former Earth First Coalition members. "Our newest additions." Jack Hawkins, once an Earth First operative and now a hybrid, spoke up. "We want a voice in this too. We may not have chosen this, but we're all in it together now." Over the next few hours, they hammered out the details of their new governing structure. The council would oversee everything from food production to waste management, ensuring the dome's limited resources were used efficiently. As the meeting concluded, Dr. Thompson burst into the room, her eyes bright with excitement. "I've done it," she announced, holding up a vial of shimmering liquid. "I've synthesized a stable version of the compound." The news electrified the room. Henry and Ava exchanged a look of cautious optimism. This breakthrough could be the key to long-term stability for their community. Within days, construction began on a small-scale production facility. The engineering team, their abilities enhanced by their hybrid state, worked around the clock to repurpose existing equipment. As the facility took shape, Aiden and Lyra focused on improving communication within the dome. Aiden's technopathic abilities had grown exponentially, allowing him to create a neural network that connected all electronic devices. "It's like the internet, but faster and more secure," Aiden explained as he demonstrated the system to his parents. We can instantly share data across the entire facility. Lyra, meanwhile, had been working on enhancing the empathic connections between hybrids. Watch this, she said, closing her eyes in concentration. Suddenly, Henry felt a wave of emotions wash over him. Not his own, but those of everyone in the room. It was overwhelming at first, but quickly settled into a background hum of shared consciousness. This is incredible, Ava breathed, marveling at the implications of this new form of communication. As the days turned into weeks, the strain on the dome's resources became increasingly apparent. Fields that had once seemed vast now looked cramped and overworked. The recycling system struggled to keep up with the growing population. Henry and Ava stood at the edge of the dome, looking out at the hybrid-affected ecosystem beyond. The plants pulsed with an otherworldly energy, their growth patterns defying known botanical principles. We need more space, Henry said, his hand resting on the transparent barrier. More resources. Ava nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. What if we could expand the dome? The idea took root quickly. Using their amplified abilities to manipulate the hybrid energy field, Henry and Ava worked with the engineering team to gradually push out the boundaries of their containment area. It was exhausting work, requiring intense concentration and precise control. But slowly, inch by inch, the dome grew. As it expanded, it incorporated more of the surrounding ecosystem, providing the community with fresh resources and new areas to explore. The expansion project hit an unexpected snag when the construction team stumbled upon a vast network of underground caverns. Jack Hawkins, who had been overseeing the excavation, reported back to the council with excitement in his voice. These caverns are like nothing we've ever seen, he said, projecting holographic images of the underground system. The mineral formations down there, they're interacting with the hybrid energy field in ways we don't understand yet. The discovery opened up new avenues of research and exploration. A team of volunteers, led by Jack, established a permanent outpost in the caverns, mapping the twisting tunnels and studying the strange mineral formations. As life within the dome evolved, the world outside continued to grapple with the implications of the hybrid situation. Dr. Zara Vex, a Wadi bioengineer, arrived on the island with a team of scientists, setting up a research station just beyond the quarantine perimeter. Their presence added a new layer of complexity to the already tense situation. Some human workers, influenced by ongoing anti-hybrid rhetoric, viewed the Wadi with suspicion. Inside the dome, Henry and Ava received reports of the growing divide between humans and Wadi. They knew they needed to act, to show the positive potential of hybrid abilities before fear and mistrust could take root. We need to demonstrate what we can do, Ava said during a council meeting. Not just survive, but thrive and innovate. With Dr. Thompson's help, they developed a series of controlled experiments showcasing practical applications of hybrid abilities. They accelerated crop growth, restored damaged ecosystems, and solved complex problems in record time. As news of these experiments spread beyond the dome, it sparked both hope and fear in the outside world. The hybrid community had proven its potential, but the question remained, at what cost? Within the caverns, Jack's team made a startling discovery. They found a chamber where the mineral formations seemed to amplify the hybrid energy field to unprecedented levels. The implications were both thrilling and terrifying. As Jack prepared to report his findings to the council, alarms blared throughout the dome. Something was happening in the caverns, something that threatened to upset the delicate balance they had worked so hard to achieve. The hybrid community stood at a crossroads, facing challenges from within and without. As they raced to understand the new development in the caverns, they knew that their actions in the coming days would shape not just their own future, but potentially the future of humanity itself. As the alarms blared throughout the dome, Henry and Ava exchanged a worried glance. They rushed to the command center, where Aiden was already furiously working at the main console. "What's happening?" Henry asked, his voice tense. Aiden's fingers flew across the holographic interface. "There's been a massive energy spike in the caverns. It's unlike anything we've seen before." Lyra closed her eyes, extending her empathic senses. "I can feel something. It's like a ripple in the collective consciousness." As they grappled with this new development, Dr. Thompson burst into the room, her face flushed with excitement. "We need to act now," she said, her eyes gleaming. "This could be our chance to demonstrate the positive potential of hybrid abilities." Henry and Ava listened intently as Dr. Thompson outlined her plan. They would use the energy spike as a catalyst for a controlled experiment, showcasing the practical applications of hybridization to both humans and Wadi outside the dome. Within hours, a secure facility was set up on the edge of the quarantine zone. 10 volunteers, 5 humans and 5 Wadi, stood ready, a mix of anticipation and nervousness on their faces. Dr. Thompson held up a vial of shimmering liquid. "This is a diluted version of the hybrid compound. It will grant you temporary hybrid abilities for approximately 24 hours. One by one, the volunteers stepped forward to receive their dose. As the compound took effect, the changes were subtle but unmistakable. The human participants' eyes sharpened. Their movements became more fluid. The Wadi volunteers' skin took on a faint luminescence, pulsing in time with the energy field around them. Outside the facility, a crowd had gathered. News of the experiment had spread quickly, drawing curious onlookers and skeptics alike. Among them stood Senator Marcus Graves, his face set in a scowl. The newly hybridized volunteers were led to a series of challenges designed to showcase their abilities. In a controlled agricultural environment, they set to work on accelerating crop growth. The human hybrids used their enhanced strength to quickly prepare the soil, while the Wadi hybrids channeled the energy field to stimulate seed germination. Within hours, what had been barren earth was transformed into a lush garden. Gasps of awe rippled through the crowd as they watched vegetables and fruits sprout and ripen before their eyes. Next, the team tackled an environmental restoration project on a polluted stretch of coastline. The human hybrids dove into the water, their enhanced senses allowing them to locate and remove hidden pockets of contaminants. The Wadi hybrids used their newfound abilities to manipulate the energy field, creating localized currents that helped disperse the cleaned water. As the day progressed, Dr. Zarovex approached Henry and Ava, her face alight with excitement. "You need to see this," she said, leading them to a nearby observation post. Through high-powered binoculars, they watched as a group of hybrid-affected animals moved through the underbrush. A bird called out, and to their astonishment, a small mammal responded with a series of chirps. "They're communicating," Dr. Zarovex explained, "across species lines. We've never seen anything like it." Back in the dome, Aiden and Lyra were pushing their own abilities to new limits. Aiden's connection to the dome's systems had deepened, allowing him to optimize resource allocation with a mere thought. Lyra stood in the agricultural sector, her eyes closed in concentration as she projected emotions of growth and vitality to the surrounding plants. In the caverns, Jack Hawkins and his team made a breakthrough of their own. They discovered a chamber filled with pulsing crystal formations that seemed to amplify the hybrid energy field. These crystals, Jack reported via the neural network Aiden had established, they could be the key to sustainable hybrid compound production. As news of these developments spread, the world's attention turned to the island. Senator Graves seized the opportunity, calling for an emergency UN session to address what he called the hybrid threat. In response, the Interspecies Cooperative Council announced that a neutral third-party investigation team would be invited to assess the situation on the island. As preparations for the investigation team's arrival began, Henry and Ava noticed changes in their own physiology. Their connection to the hybrid energy field had intensified, granting them unprecedented control, but also increasing their dependence on it. They stood at the edge of the dome, looking out at the transformed landscape beyond. The challenges ahead were daunting, but for the first time since the crisis began, they felt a glimmer of hope. "We're ready," Ava said, her voice firm. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Henry nodded, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the quarantine ship still hovered. The world was watching, waiting to see what the hybrid community would do next, and they were determined to show them a future worth believing in. As Henry and Ava stood at the edge of the dome, their eyes fixed on the horizon, a flurry of activity erupted behind them. The independent investigation team had arrived. "It's time," Henry said, turning to face the approaching group. Ava nodded, her expression a mixture of perseverance and apprehension. The team, consisting of renowned scientists and ethicists from neutral countries, emerged from their transport vehicles. Dr. Eliza Chen, the lead investigator, stepped forward, her keen eyes taking in the vast expanse of the dome. "Welcome to our home," Ava greeted them, extending her hand. "We've prepared an observation center that will allow you to witness our work without direct exposure to the hybrid environment." As they led the team to the specially constructed facility, Henry couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The observation center was a marvel of engineering, designed to showcase the best of what the hybrid community had achieved. Inside, the investigators marveled at the advanced technology. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing real-time data from various sectors of the dome. "This is incredible," Dr. Chen murmured, her fingers tracing the edge of a 3D projection of the cavern system. Henry smiled. "What you're seeing is just the beginning. We'd like to demonstrate the temporary hybridization process developed by Dr. Thompson." On cue, a group of volunteers, including several members of the investigation team, stepped forward. Dr. Thompson appeared, holding a vial of the shimmering compound. "This will grant you limited hybrid abilities for approximately 24 hours, she explained, her voice calm and reassuring. As the volunteers received their doses, the changes were subtle but unmistakable. One of the investigators, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, gasped as her vision sharpened, colors becoming more vibrant than she had ever experienced. "I can see everything," she whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. Meanwhile, within the dome, Aiden and Lyra were pushing the boundaries of their abilities. Aiden stood in the control room, his mind interfacing directly with the dome systems. With a thought, he redirected power flows, optimizing resource allocation in real time. "Energy efficiency is up by 30%, he reported through the neural network, his voice tinged with excitement. In the agricultural sector, Lyra knelt among the crops, her hands hovering just above the soil. She closed her eyes, projecting feelings of growth and vitality. The plants responded, shoots sprouting and unfurling before her eyes. "I've done it," she breathed, opening her eyes to see a new strain of fast-growing, nutrient-rich vegetables surrounding her. Jack Hawkins' voice crackled over the communication system. "You won't believe what we've found down here," he said, his excitement palpable even through the static. In the caverns, Jack and his team stood before an ancient stone archway, its surface covered in strange, glowing symbols. Beyond the arch stretched a network of tunnels that seemed to predate human habitation on the island. "These markings," Jack said, running his hand along the carved surface, "they're channeling the hybrid energy field. I think someone was here before us, harnessing this power centuries ago." As the investigation progressed, Dr. Zarovex presented her findings on hybrid wildlife communication. In a controlled environment, she demonstrated how a hybrid bird and mammal exchange information through a combination of pheromones and low-frequency calls. "This goes beyond anything we've seen in nature," Dr. Zarovex explained, her voice filled with awe. "It's a true interspecies language." The revelation sparked intense debate among the investigation team. Dr. Chen frowned, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The ecological implications of this are staggering," she mused. As the day wore on, a small group of carefully vetted journalists arrived to document the investigation. Among them was Sarah Thompson, her eyes bright with curiosity as she took in the sights of the hybrid facility. During a laboratory tour, Sarah leaned in for a closer look at a vial of concentrated hybrid compound. In a moment of carelessness, the vial tipped, shattering on the floor. Before anyone could react, Sarah was engulfed in a cloud of shimmering particles. Alarms blared as Sarah collapsed, her body convulsing as the uncontrolled hybridization process took hold. Henry and Ava rushed to the scene, their heightened abilities allowing them to assess the situation in seconds. "We need to stabilize her," Ava said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Together they focused their amplified abilities on Sarah's trembling form. Energy flowed from their hands, surrounding her in a cocoon of pulsing light. Slowly, her convulsions subsided and her breathing steadied. As Sarah opened her eyes, now shimmering with an otherworldly light, the room fell silent. The incident, while frightening, had demonstrated the hybrid community's ability to handle unforeseen complications. News of Sarah's accidental hybridization spread quickly, igniting a firestorm of public interest and debate. The Interspecies Cooperative Council convened an emergency session to discuss the future of the hybrid research program. Within the dome, life continued to evolve at a rapid pace. Henry and Ava noticed new changes in themselves, a deepening connection to the hybrid energy field that manifested in unexpected ways. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the dome's highest observation point, Henry turned to Ava, his mouth opening to speak. But before he could utter a word, he heard her voice in his mind, clear as day. "I know," Ava's thoughts echoed in his consciousness. "I can hear you too." Their eyes widened in shared amazement. This new ability to communicate telepathically opened up a world of possibilities and questions about the future of human-body integration through hybridization. As the independent investigation team prepared to present their initial findings to the world, the hybrid community within the dome stood on the brink of a new era. The accidental hybridization of Sarah Thompson, the archaeological discoveries in the caverns, and the rapidly evolving abilities of the hybrid population all pointed to a future that was as thrilling as it was uncertain. Henry and Ava stood hand in hand, their minds linked in silent communication, as they awaited the announcement that would shape the course of hybrid evolution on Earth. The world held its breath, poised on the edge of a transformation that would redefine the very nature of humanity. Humanity itself. As they waited, a commotion erupted near the laboratory wing. Alarms blared, and Henry and Ava rushed towards the source of the disturbance. They arrived to find a scene of controlled chaos. Sarah Thompson, the journalist who had been accidentally exposed to the concentrated hybrid compound, lay on a medical bed, her body pulsing with an otherworldly light. Dr. Thompson and her team worked feverishly around Sarah, monitoring her vitals and collecting data. As Henry and Ava approached, Dr. Thompson looked up, her eyes wide with excitement. "This is extraordinary," she said, gesturing to the readouts. "Sarah's genetic makeup has somehow stabilized the hybrid state. We've never seen anything like this before." Ava leaned in, her enhanced senses picking up subtle changes in Sarah's energy field. "How is this possible?" Dr. Thompson shook her head. "We're not entirely sure yet, but it seems her unique genetic structure interacted with the compound in a way we hadn't anticipated. If we can replicate this stability in other hybrids, it could be a game changer." As the medical team continued their work, Henry's communicator buzzed. It was Jack Hawkins, his voice tinged with urgency. "Henry, you need to see this," Jack said. "We found something in the caverns." Henry and Ava made their way to the underground complex, where they found Jack and Dr. Zarevek standing before a massive stone door covered in glowing symbols. "We've managed to decipher some of the markings," Dr. Zarevek explained. "This chamber contains technology from the ancient civilization that once inhabited this island. Technology designed to control the hybrid energy field." With a low rumble, the door slowly opened, revealing a vast chamber filled with pulsing, crystalline structures and strange alien devices. The air hummed with energy, making the hairs on the back of Henry's neck stand on end. As they explored the chamber, Ava's communicator crackled to life. Aiden's voice came through, tense and focused. "We've got a situation up here," he said. "Senator Graves has pushed for an emergency UN Security Council meeting. They're discussing whether to shut down our research program entirely." Henry and Ava exchanged worried glances. The timing couldn't have been worse. "We need to act fast," Henry said. "Ava, contact the Interspecies Cooperative Council. Tell them we need to invite world leaders here immediately. They need to see what we've accomplished firsthand." As Ava relayed the message, Henry felt a sudden shift in his awareness. The background hum of the hybrid energy field intensified, and he could sense the presence of every hybrid within the dome. A quick glance at Ava confirmed she felt it too. "Our abilities are evolving," Ava said, her voice filled with wonder. "I can hear the thoughts of everyone in the dome." This new development brought both excitement and concern. The potential for enhanced coordination and problem-solving was immense, but it also raised questions about privacy and individual autonomy within their growing community. Back in the main facility, Aiden and Lyra were hard at work on a project to extend the dome's energy field. Their goal was to create a controlled hybrid zone that could gradually expand, potentially allowing for the safe integration of hybrids into the wider world. If we can modulate the field strength here, Aiden said, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface, we should be able to create a stable buffer zone. Lyra nodded, her eyes closed in concentration as she manipulated the energy flows. It's working, she said. I can feel the field extending. Outside the dome, Dr. Zarovex made a breakthrough with the hybrid wildlife. She held up a small device, its screen flickering with strange patterns. We've done it, she announced to her team. This translator can interpret the interspecies communication of the hybrid animals. It's rudimentary, but it's a start. As news of these developments spread, the first group of world leaders began to arrive at the island facility. Security was tight, with hybrid guards using their enhanced abilities to scan for any potential threats. Just as the leaders were being briefed on the latest discoveries, alarms began to blare throughout the facility. Security feeds showed a group of armed individuals attempting to breach the quarantine zone. Anti-hybrid extremists, Henry said, his voice grim. They must have been inspired by Senator Graves' rhetoric. The hybrid community sprang into action. Henry and Ava used their newly enhanced telepathic abilities to coordinate the response, their thoughts reaching every hybrid within the dome. Aiden, Lyra, reinforce the dome's energy field, Henry projected. Jack, take a team and confront the intruders directly. Everyone else, prepare for potential breaches. As the defenders mobilized, a new crisis erupted. The ancient technology in the underground chamber suddenly activated, sending pulses of hybrid energy throughout the facility. The containment systems flickered, and hybrids throughout the dome stumbled as their abilities fluctuated wildly. We need to shut it down, Dr. Thompson shouted over the chaos. Sarah, your hybrid physiology seems resistant to the energy pulses. We need your help. Sarah Thompson, still adjusting to her new hybrid state, nodded and followed Dr. Thompson into the chamber. As they worked to understand and control the ancient technology, the world leaders watched in a mixture of awe and fear. Outside, Jack Hawkins led a team of hybrid defenders against the extremists. Their enhanced strength and agility made short work of the attackers, but the fluctuating energy field made their abilities unpredictable. In the control room, Aiden and Lyra fought to stabilize the dome systems. Sweat beaded on their foreheads as they pushed their powers to the limit, struggling to contain the surging energy. As the crisis reached its peak, Sarah Thompson made a crucial discovery. Guided by her unique hybrid intuition, she identified a key sequence in the ancient device's controls. With Dr. Thompson's guidance, she initiated a shutdown procedure. The energy pulses subsided, and a tense calm settled over the facility. The hybrid defenders had successfully repelled the attack, and the ancient technology was once again dormant. As the dust settled, Henry and Ava stood before the assembled world leaders, their faces etched with grit. The events of the day had demonstrated both the potential and the risks of hybrid technology. Now it was time to face the consequences and chart a course for the future. The leaders murmured among themselves, their expressions a mix of concern and intrigue. The fate of the hybrid research program, and perhaps the future of human-Wadi relations, hung in the balance. As Henry prepared to address them, he knew that every word, every action in the coming moments would be crucial. Critical. Henry took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders as he faced the assembled leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice steady and clear, what you've witnessed today is both a testament to the potential of hybrid technology and a stark reminder of the challenges we face. We stand at a crossroads, and the decisions we make here will shape the future of human-Wadi relations and our planet's ecosystem. As Henry spoke, Ava projected a series of holographic images, showcasing the advancements and breakthroughs achieved within the dome. The world leaders leaned forward, their expressions a mixture of awe and apprehension. In the days that followed, the island facility became a hub of intense activity. The Interspecies Cooperative Council convened an emergency session, with Henry and Ava providing expert testimony on the current state of hybrid development. They detailed the recent enhancements in their abilities, including their expanded telepathic range and precise control over the hybrid energy field. Dr. Thompson and her team worked around the clock, studying the ancient technology discovered in the underground caverns. As they pored over the alien devices, a pattern began to emerge. "It's not just a power source," Dr. Thompson explained to Henry and Ava, her eyes bright with excitement. "This technology acts as a stabilizer for the hybrid energy field on a planetary scale. The implications are staggering." Sarah Thompson, still adjusting to her new hybrid state, became a central figure in Dr. Thompson's research. Her unique physiological response to the hybrid compound provided a wealth of data, offering insights into achieving long-term stability for hybrid individuals. In the medical wing, Sarah sat patiently as Dr. Chen ran a series of tests. "How are you feeling?" Dr. Chen asked, studying the readouts on her tablet. Sarah flexed her fingers, watching as small arcs of energy danced between them. "It's incredible," she said. "I can sense everything around me in ways I never thought possible." Dr. Chen nodded, making notes. "Your genetic markers are unlike anything we've seen before. We believe they may hold the key to replicating your stability in future transformations." Meanwhile, Jack Hawkins led a team of hybrid explorers deeper into the cavern system. They moved with enhanced agility through narrow passages, their heightened senses alert for any signs of danger or discovery. "Over here," called one of the team members, her voice echoing through the chamber. Jack approached, his eyes widening as he took in the sight before him. The chamber was filled with perfectly preserved specimens of hybrid flora and fauna, suspended in crystalline structures. Alien plants with bioluminescent fronds stood frozen in time, while hybrid creatures unlike anything on modern Earth floated in stasis fields. "This is incredible," Jack breathed, activating his comlink. "Dr. Zara Vex, you need to see this. We found what looks like a complete ecosystem of hybrid life forms." In the facility's main research lab, Aiden and Lyra huddled over a complex array of holographic displays. They were putting the finishing touches on their proposal for a bold new project, integrating the ancient stabilization technology with their own hybrid abilities to create a controlled, expandable hybrid zone. "If we can calibrate the energy field just right," Aiden said, his fingers dancing across the interface, "we should be able to gradually expand the habitable area for hybrids." Lyra nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's risky, but if it works, it could be the key to integrating hybrids into the wider world safely." As these developments unfolded within the facility, the global response to recent events began to shift. The attack by anti-hybrid extremists in the hybrid community's effective response had garnered sympathy and support from previously skeptical nations. In the facility's communications center, Henry and Ava monitored incoming messages from world governments. Several countries were expressing interest in establishing their own hybrid research programs, leading to discussions about creating an international framework for hybrid development and integration. "We need to tread carefully here," Ava said, her mind linked with Henry's. "Too much expansion too quickly could be dangerous." Henry nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "Agreed. We need to set up proper protocols and safety measures before we even consider expanding beyond this facility." Their conversation was interrupted by an alert on the main screen. Senator Marcus Graves was holding a press conference. His stance on hybrid research noticeably softened. "While I still have concerns about the potential risks," Graves said, his voice carefully measured, "recent events have shown that outright opposition to hybrid research is not the answer. We need strict regulation and oversight to ensure the safety of all citizens, human and hybrid alike." As Henry and Ava watched the press conference, they felt a sudden surge in their awareness. The background hum of the hybrid energy field intensified, and they found themselves able to sense the presence of every hybrid within the dome with startling clarity. "Our abilities are evolving again," Ava said, her voice tinged with a mix of excitement and concern. "I can feel the energy field. It's like I can manipulate it with just a thought." Henry nodded, experiencing the same sensation. "We need to be careful. This level of power, it could be dangerous if we're not in control." Their enhanced abilities brought new challenges. As they tested the limits of their power, they discovered an increased dependence on the hybrid energy field. Stepping outside the dome's influence left them feeling drained and disoriented, raising concerns about their ability to function in non-hybrid environments. As the hybrid community grappled with these new developments, a Wadi transport ship entered Earth's atmosphere. On board was a delegation of the most respected Wadi scientists and leaders, led by the esteemed geneticist Dr. Zelvarian. The arrival of the Wadi delegation marked a new chapter in the hybrid research program. Dr. Zelvarian brought with him advanced genetic sequencing technology that promised to revolutionize their understanding of hybrid DNA. In the main laboratory, Dr. Zelvarian demonstrated his equipment to an eager audience of human and hybrid scientists. This device, he explained, his multifaceted eyes gleaming, can analyze the most complex genetic structures in a matter of minutes. It will allow us to unravel the mysteries of human Wadi hybridization at an unprecedented rate. As the Wadi scientists integrated into the research teams, a series of breakthroughs followed in rapid succession. The combined knowledge of human, Wadi, and hybrid minds pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. With each passing day, the hybrid community grew stronger, more unified in purpose. Yet as they prepared for their most ambitious experiment yet, the integration of ancient stabilization technology with the dome's energy field, tension hung in the air. The success or failure of this expansion could determine the future of human-Wadi relations and the role of hybrids in global society. As the final preparations were made, Henry and Ava stood at the heart of the facility, their minds linked, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The air in the facility crackled with anticipation as the final preparations for the expansion of the hybrid zone neared completion. Henry and Ava stood at the heart of the Energy Control Center, their minds linked, ready to initiate the integration of the ancient stabilization technology with the dome's energy field. As Ava's fingers hovered over the activation sequence, a sudden wave of dizziness washed over her. She stumbled, catching herself on the control panel. Henry rushed to her side, concern etched on his face. "Ava, what's wrong?" he asked when steadying her. She shook her head, trying to clear the fog. "I'm not sure. I feel strange." Dr. Thompson, who had been monitoring their vitals from a nearby station, approached swiftly. "Both of your readings are off the charts," she said, her brow furrowed. "We need to run some tests immediately." In the medical bay, Henry and Ava lay on adjacent examination tables as Dr. Thompson and her team conducted a battery of tests. The room hummed with the sound of advanced medical equipment, casting an eerie glow over the scene. "This is unexpected," Dr. Thompson murmured, studying the results. She turned to the couple, her expression grave. "Your prolonged exposure to the concentrated hybrid environment has led to significant physiological changes, particularly in your reproductive systems." Henry propped himself up on his elbows. "What kind of changes?" Dr. Thompson pulled up a holographic display showing side-by-side comparisons of their current physiology and baseline readings from months ago. "Your bodies have adapted to produce a more potent form of the sacred nectar essential for stabilizing hybrid transformations. However, the quantity has decreased dramatically." Ava's eyes widened as the implications sank in. "But without a stable supply of the nectar, the sustainability of the entire hybrid community is at risk," Dr. Thompson finished grimly. The next few days were a flurry of activity as the research team grappled with this new crisis. In a tense meeting with the facility's leadership, Dr. Thompson proposed a radical solution. "A specialized mating ritual," she explained, her voice steady despite the audible gasp from around the room. "We'll combine elements of human and Wadi reproductive practices to stimulate the production of the enhanced sacred nectar." Dr. Zelvarian, the Wadi geneticist, nodded in agreement. "Such rituals are not uncommon in Wadi culture for addressing reproductive challenges. I believe this approach has merit." As preparations for the ritual began, a new complication arose. Jack Hawkins burst into the control room, his face flushed from exertion. "The ancient tech in the caverns is acting up," he reported breathlessly. "It's interfering with the dome's energy systems. We're seeing massive fluctuations in the hybrid environment." Aiden and Lyra, who had been working on designs for a protective energy barrier, exchanged worried glances. "If we don't stabilize the energy field soon, It could destabilize the entire hybrid population, Lyra said, her voice tight with concern. The next week was a race against time. Jack led expeditions into the cavern system, mapping a network of energy conduits they hoped could be used to channel and control the disruptive energy. Meanwhile, Aiden and Lyra pushed their abilities to the limit, creating a protective barrier around the newly constructed ritual chamber. On the day of the ritual, tension hung heavy in the air. Henry and Ava stood before the entrance to the chamber, their hands clasped tightly. "Are you ready?" Henry asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ava nodded, her eyes reflecting a mix of drive and apprehension. "As ready as I'll ever be." They stepped into the chamber, bathed in the soft, pulsating light of the amplified hybrid energy field. As the ritual began, the energy within the room intensified, creating a visible aura around their bodies. Outside, Dr. Thompson and her team watched the monitoring systems with anxious anticipation. The energy levels spiked dramatically, temporarily overwhelming their equipment. When the systems came back online, Dr. Thompson gasped. "These readings, they're off the charts. The Nectar production is far exceeding our expectations." As the ritual reached its climax, a blinding surge of energy erupted from the chamber. When it subsided, Henry and Ava emerged, their bodies glowing with a faint, iridescent light. Dr. Thompson rushed forward, scanner in hand. "How do you feel?" Henry flexed his fingers, watching as small arcs of energy danced between them. "Connected," he said, his voice filled with awe. "I can feel the energy field like never before." Ava nodded in agreement, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's as if we're part of it now, more than ever." As news of the ritual's success spread through the facility, a new sense of hope blossomed among the hybrid community. The crisis of Nectar production had been averted, but new questions loomed on the horizon. Dr. Thompson studied the latest test results, her mind racing with the implications. The ritual had fundamentally altered Henry and Ava's physiology, pushing the boundaries of hybridization further than ever before. As she prepared to brief the research team on their findings, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of a new era in human-body relations. The success of the ritual had provided a stable source of enhanced, sacred nectar, offering hope for the long-term viability of the hybrid population. However, the unexpected changes in Henry and Ava's physiology and their increased connection to the hybrid energy field presented a new frontier of challenges and opportunities. As the facility buzzed with activity, analyzing data, and preparing for the next phase of research, Henry and Ava stood at the heart of it all, their bodies still shimmering with residual energy. They exchanged a look, silently acknowledging the weight of responsibility that came with their new state of being. The future of hybrid evolution lay in their hands, and the journey ahead promised to be unlike anything they had experienced before. As the glow from Henry and Ava's transformation slowly faded, Dr. Thompson wasted no time in collecting samples of the enhanced, sacred nectar produced during their union. The research team immediately set to work analyzing its unique properties, their excitement palpable in the air of the bustling laboratory. "These results are astonishing," Dr. Thompson breathed, her eyes wide as she studied the holographic display of the nectar's molecular structure. "The potency is off the charts, and there are compounds here I've never seen before." Dr. Varian clicked his mandibles in agreement, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the swirling data. "Indeed, this could revolutionize our entire understanding of the hybridization process." As the days passed, Henry and Ava's physical changes continued to evolve. Their skin took on a subtle, iridescent sheen that pulsated in perfect synchronization with the hybrid energy field. The effect was mesmerizing, but it quickly became apparent that this new state came with limitations. "I'm sorry," Dr. Thompson said, her voice heavy as she delivered the news, "but your bodies have become so attuned to the hybrid energy field that leaving the dome would pose a significant health risk. For now, at least, you'll need to remain within its boundaries." Henry and Ava exchanged a look, their minds linked in silent communication. They had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed was still a shock. "We understand," Ava said finally, her voice steady despite the weight of the revelation. "We'll adapt. Our work here is too important to risk." As Henry and Ava adjusted to their new reality, their children, Aiden and Lyra, approached the research team with a bold proposal. "We think we can create a controlled hybrid zone outside the dome," Aiden explained, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Using the ancient tech in the caverns and our abilities, we could generate a localized field." Dr. Thompson frowned, considering the implications. "It's risky, but if it works, it could be the first step towards expanding the hybrid habitat," Lyra finished, her voice brimming with excitement. After much deliberation, the team agreed to a small-scale test. Jack Hawkins and his crew worked tirelessly to set up energy conduits connecting the ancient technology to a designated area just beyond the dome's perimeter. On the day of the test, Aiden and Lyra stood at the edge of the dome, their hands outstretched. As they focused their abilities, a shimmering field of energy began to coalesce in the air before them. Slowly, it expanded, forming a bubble of hybrid-friendly atmosphere. "It's working," Jack called out, his eyes fixed on the readouts from his monitoring equipment. "The field is stable and self-sustaining." The success of the external hybrid zone opened up new avenues of research and expansion. As word spread, the Interspecies Cooperative Council found itself inundated with requests from nations eager to participate in the hybrid program. In response, a rigorous screening process was established, and soon the first group of international scientists arrived at the island facility. The atmosphere was electric with the exchange of ideas and the promise of new collaborations. Dr. Zell Varian, inspired by the recent breakthroughs, proposed a new direction for their research. "We should consider developing specialized hybrid strains," he suggested during a strategy meeting. "Imagine hybrids adapted for deep-sea exploration or even space travel." The research team threw themselves into this new challenge with gusto, working on prototypes designed for various extreme environments. Meanwhile, an unexpected side effect of the external hybrid zone began to manifest. Dr. Zara Vex, the resident xenobiologist, was the first to notice the changes in the local wildlife. "The hybrid energy field is accelerating their evolution at an unprecedented rate," she reported, her voice filled with awe. "We're seeing entirely new species emerge in a matter of weeks." As the scope of their work expanded, so too did the need for additional facilities. Construction began on a new research complex, with hybrid workers using their enhanced abilities to speed up the building process. Throughout it all, Henry and Ava found a new purpose as mentors to the growing hybrid community. They developed training programs to help new hybrids control and optimize their abilities, laying the groundwork for a standardized hybrid education curriculum. However, their unique status as the sole producers of the enhanced sacred nectar posed a challenge. Dr. Thompson and her team worked tirelessly to develop a synthetic version, hoping to reduce the strain on Henry and Ava. "The synthetic version shows promise," Dr. Thompson explained during a progress report, "but it still lacks some of the unique properties of the naturally produced nectar. We'll keep working on it." As the sun set on another day of groundbreaking discoveries, a new mystery presented itself. The facility's advanced communication systems detected an unusual signal, its patterns eerily similar to those found in the hybrid energy field. "It's definitely extraterrestrial in origin," Jack confirmed, his brow furrowed as he studied the signal's waveform. "But how is it connected to our hybrid tech?" The research team gathered around the monitors, their minds racing with the implications of this cosmic connection. As they prepared to delve into this new mystery, the air hummed with the promise of even greater discoveries on the horizon. As they prepared to delve into this new mystery, the air hummed with the promise of even greater discoveries on the horizon. Dr. Thompson leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the monitor displaying the alien signal's waveform. "Jack, can you isolate the frequency and run it through our hybrid energy analysis algorithms?" Jack's fingers flew across the holographic keyboard. "Already on it, Doc. Give me a few minutes to process the data." The research team huddled around the central display, watching as complex patterns began to emerge from the seemingly random noise. Dr. Zell Varian's multifaceted eyes widened as he recognized familiar structures within the signal. "Fascinating," he clicked. These patterns bear a striking resemblance to the energy signatures we've observed in our hybrid technology. Dr. Thompson nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. We need to decode this signal. It could be the key to understanding the true origins of the hybrid energy field. Over the next several days, the team worked tirelessly to decipher the extraterrestrial transmission. Sleep became a luxury as they pored over data, tested hypotheses, and pushed their equipment to its limits. Their breakthrough came on the fourth day when Dr. Zarovec noticed a recurring sequence in the signal. "Look here," she said, pointing to a series of peaks and valleys in the waveform. "This pattern repeats at regular intervals, but with slight variations each time." Dr. Thompson's eyes lit up with realization. It's not just a signal, it's instructions. As the team delved deeper into the decoded message, they discovered detailed schematics for an advanced communication device. The plans called for a fusion of human technology, Wadi bioengineering, and the unique properties of the hybrid energy field. Dr. Thompson wasted no time in presenting their findings to the Interspecies Cooperative Council. The council chamber buzzed with excitement and apprehension as she laid out the potential implications of constructing the device. "This could be our first step towards establishing contact with an advanced alien civilization," she explained. "However, we must proceed with caution. We don't know the intentions behind this message or what consequences might arise from responding." After hours of heated debate, the council authorized the immediate construction of the communication device. Resources were quickly allocated, and work began around the clock to bring the alien schematics to life. Henry and Ava, despite their confinement to the containment dome, played a crucial role in the project. Their unique connection to the hybrid energy field allowed them to manipulate and fine-tune the device's more esoteric components. Ava placed her hand on a crystalline structure at the heart of the device, closing her eyes as she felt the energy flow through her. "It's responding," she murmured. "I can sense the pathways aligning." Henry nodded, his own hands hovering over a series of intricate circuits. "I feel it too. It's like the device is coming alive under our touch." Outside the dome, Aiden and Lyra continued their work on expanding the external hybrid zone. As they pushed the boundaries further, they noticed an unexpected phenomenon. Flocks of migratory birds began to alter their flight paths, drawn to the shimmering energy field. Lyra watched in awe as a group of seagulls entered the zone, their feathers immediately taking on an iridescent sheen. "Aiden, look! The birds! They're changing!" Aiden quickly set up monitoring equipment to track the avian transformations. "It's not just their appearance," he reported, studying the data. "Their brain activity is off the charts. It's as if the hybrid field is enhancing their cognitive abilities." As construction of the communication device neared completion, Jack Hawkins led a team of hybrid explorers deeper into the cavern system. They followed pulsating energy conduits that seemed to resonate with the alien signal. The narrow passages eventually opened into a vast domed chamber. In its center stood a massive crystalline structure, its facets glowing with an inner light that pulsed in perfect synchronization with the signal from space. Jack approached the artifact cautiously, his handheld scanner beeping frantically. "This thing is putting out energy readings like nothing we've ever seen before," he reported back to the surface. "It's definitely connected to the signal somehow." As the team examined the artifact, Dr. Zarovec made a startling discovery in her studies of the hybrid wildlife. She burst into the research lab, clutching a tablet filled with video footage. "You need to see this," she said breathlessly, playing a recording of a newly evolved hybrid primate. The creature was using a crude stone tool to crack open nuts, displaying problem-solving skills far beyond its non-hybrid counterparts. Dr. Thompson watched the footage with a mix of excitement and concern. "The implications of this are staggering," she said. "If the hybrid energy field can accelerate evolution to this degree, we may need to reevaluate its potential impact on Earth's entire ecosystem." As the research team grappled with these new developments, Dr. Varian approached them with a radical proposal. "I believe we should create a specialized hybrid individual," he explained, his mandibles clicking with excitement. "One specifically designed to interface with the communication device and establish direct contact with the alien civilization." The idea sparked intense debate among the researchers and the Interspecies Cooperative Council. Ethical concerns were raised about creating a sentient being for such a specific purpose, but the potential benefits ultimately outweighed the risks. With the Council's approval, a carefully selected team began the process of combining human and Wadi genetic material with DNA samples from Henry and Ava. Their goal was to create a hybrid embryo with unprecedented cognitive abilities and an innate affinity for the hybrid energy field. As the embryo developed in a specialized artificial womb, the research team put the finishing touches on the communication device. They integrated it with the ancient technology found in the caverns, creating a powerful hybrid alien interface. The moment of truth arrived. Dr. Thompson took a deep breath and activated the device. A pulse of energy surged through the facility, causing lights to flicker and equipment to momentarily malfunction. Deep in the cavern, the alien artifact thrummed with power. It projected a holographic map of the galaxy, filled with swirling stars and nebulae. Several star systems pulsed with the same unique energy signature as their hybrid technology. As the researchers marveled at this cosmic revelation, alarms began to sound from the artificial womb chamber. The hybrid embryo was developing at an astonishing rate, far exceeding their most optimistic projections. Within weeks, the infant had reached a physical and cognitive state equivalent to a human teenager. They named her Nova, and her ability to interpret and manipulate the hybrid energy field surpassed even Henry and Ava's capabilities. As Nova's mind continued to expand, she began to exhibit signs of telepathic communication with the alien artifact. Fragments of visions and information about an ancient galactic civilization flooded her consciousness, overwhelming her with the vastness of this cosmic legacy. The Interspecies Cooperative Council, recognizing the monumental implications of these developments, initiated a global alert. As they began preparations for possible first contact with an advanced alien species, Nova's training intensified. Henry and Ava, feeling a deep connection to Nova, took on the role of mentors. They worked with her daily, helping her navigate her rapidly expanding abilities and the flood of alien knowledge. "Focus on the energy," Ava instructed, guiding Nova's hands as they manipulated the hybrid field. "Feel its ebb and flow. Let it become an extension of your will." Nova nodded, her eyes closed in concentration. The air around her shimmered as she exerted her influence on the energy field, creating complex patterns and structures with a mere thought. As Nova's control over her abilities grew, she successfully established a stable link between the communication device and the alien artifact. The research team gathered around her, their hearts racing with anticipation as she prepared to make the first official transmission to the alien civilization. Nova took a deep breath, placing her hands on the communication device. The hybrid energy field surged around her, creating a visible aura of power. She opened her mind, reaching out across the vast distances of space, ready to bridge the gap between Earth and the stars. Vast distances of space, ready to bridge the gap between Earth and the unknown. As her fingers made contact with the device, a sudden surge of power coursed through the facility. Lights flickered, and alarms blared as the energy systems overloaded. In the containment dome, Henry and Ava felt a shift in the air around them. The familiar hum of the energy field faltered, creating a momentary gap in their confinement. "Ava, do you feel that?" Henry asked, his eyes wide with realization. She nodded, already moving towards the dome's entrance. "We need to get to Nova. She'll need our help." Without hesitation, they stepped through the weakened barrier, free for the first time in months. They raced through the corridors, guided by the pulsing energy emanating from the communication chamber. As they entered, they saw Nova surrounded by a swirling vortex of hybrid energy. Dr. Thompson and her team stood back, their faces a mix of awe and concern. "Nova!" Ava called out, pushing through the gathering of scientists. Nova's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. "Mom? Dad?" she whispered, her voice echoing with strange harmonics. "I need you." Henry and Ava approached, their own bodies beginning to resonate with the hybrid energy field. They placed their hands on Nova's shoulders, forming a triangle of power around the communication device. Deep within the caverns, Jack Hawkins and his team watched in amazement as the alien artifact pulsed with newfound life. Energy coursed through the crystalline structure, spreading outward through the network of caves. "Everyone, fall back," Jack ordered, ushering his team towards the exit. "We don't know what this thing is capable of." As they retreated, the energy field expanded, seeping into the surrounding rock and soil. Plants at the cave entrance began to twist and grow at an accelerated rate, their forms shifting into bizarre new configurations. On the surface, Aiden and Lyra were monitoring the expanded hybrid zones when their instruments went haywire. The carefully controlled boundaries began to fluctuate wildly, sending waves of transformative energy across the island. "This is bad," Aiden muttered, his fingers flying over the control panel. "We need to contain this before it spreads too far." Lyra nodded, her face set with drive. She raised her hands, channeling her own hybrid abilities to erect shimmering barriers of energy around the affected areas. In the communication chamber, Nova's body began to emit a brilliant, pulsating light. Her DNA, displayed on nearby monitors, showed signs of rapid mutation. Dr. Thompson watched in horror as Nova's form started to blur and shift. "We're losing her," she shouted, turning to Henry and Ava. "Can you stabilize her?" The couple nodded, their faces etched with concentration. They focused their energies, creating a protective cocoon around Nova. The wild fluctuations in her form began to slow, but the strain on Henry and Ava was evident. As Nova's consciousness reached out across the cosmos, she was bombarded by a torrent of sensory information and fragmented memories. She saw countless worlds, each teeming with hybrid life forms. Vast networks of energy connected these planets, forming a galactic web of shared evolution and knowledge. Suddenly, a singular presence made itself known amidst the chaos. It was ancient, wise, and unmistakably hybrid in nature. Nova felt a kinship with this being, as if it were a long-lost ancestor reaching out across time and space. Images flashed through her mind: the birth of stars, the seeding of planets with the building blocks of life, and the slow, steady guidance of evolution across the galaxy. She understood now that hybridization was not just a quirk of Earth's biology, but a fundamental force of cosmic development. As this revelation washed over her, Nova became aware of the danger facing her home. The hybrid energy, unleashed too quickly and without proper understanding, threatened to overwhelm Earth's delicate balance. With a supreme effort of will, Nova began to filter and organize the flood of information. She could feel her parents' support, their energies intertwined with hers, anchoring her to reality. Outside the facility, the island was in chaos. Trees grew to impossible heights, their branches twisting into fractal patterns. Animals underwent rapid mutations, developing new appendages and abilities before the astonished eyes of the research team. Dr. Zelvarian burst into the communication chamber, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "We need to stabilize the hybrid energy immediately," he announced. "I propose using Henry and Ava's enhanced Nectar as a base for a stabilizing agent." Dr. Thompson nodded, quickly organizing a team to set up a makeshift laboratory. "We'll need to work fast," she said, glancing at the trio connected to the communication device. "I don't know how long they can maintain this connection." As the scientists raced against time, Jack Hawkins' voice crackled over the intercom. "Dr. Thompson, you need to see this," he said, his voice tinged with awe and fear. "The artifact in the cavern. It's changing." On the monitors, they watched as the crystalline structure reconfigured itself, forming an arch-like gateway. Energy swirled within its frame, creating a shimmering portal to an unknown destination. "It's a wormhole," Dr. Thompson breathed, her mind racing with the implications. But to where? Nova's eyes snapped open, glowing with an inner light. When she spoke, her voice resonated with the wisdom of ages. "The gateway is our key," she said. "We must use it to channel the excess energy, to bring balance to our world and connect with the greater hybrid network." As the research team absorbed this information, alarms blared throughout the facility. The island's geological stability was compromised, tremors shaking the very foundations of their world. New fissures opened in the earth, revealing hidden chambers filled with ancient technology. Henry and Ava shared a look of purpose. They knew what had to be done. Together with Nova, they began the dangerous process of redirecting the wild hybrid energy into the alien gateway. The fate of the island, and perhaps the entire planet, hung in the balance as they worked to harness the cosmic power of hybridization. The air crackled with energy, the very fabric of reality seeming to bend around them as they fought to establish equilibrium. In this moment of crisis, with the forces of creation and destruction swirling around them, the true test of humanity's readiness to join the galactic community had begun. The air crackled with energy as Nova, Henry, and Ava focused their combined abilities on the alien artifact. Iridescent tendrils of hybrid energy arced between them and the gateway, creating a dazzling light show that illuminated the chamber. As the energy flow intensified, the artifact's structure began to shift and expand. The crystalline arch grew wider, its surface rippling like liquid metal. A shimmering portal materialized within the frame, offering a tantalizing glimpse of another world. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the swirling vortex. The being stepped gracefully into the chamber, its form a harmonious blend of human and wadi features. Clothed in robes that shimmered with an otherworldly light, the alien's presence commanded immediate attention. "Greetings, children of Earth," the being spoke, its voice resonating with a melodic timbre. "I am Sister Xantha of the Cosmic Sisterhood, an ancient order of hybrid cultivators." Dr. Thompson stepped forward, her eyes wide with wonder. "Welcome to Earth, Sister Xantha. We are honored by your presence." Xantha nodded, her gaze sweeping across the room before settling on Nova, Henry, and Ava. "I have been drawn here by the unique hybrid energy signature you've created. Your world stands at a crossroads, and we are here to guide you." As if to emphasize her words, another tremor shook the facility. Dust rained from the ceiling, and the hum of overloading equipment grew louder. "We don't have much time," Xantha said, her expression grave. "I can offer a solution, but it will require your trust and cooperation." Henry and Ava exchanged glances, then nodded in unison. "Whatever it takes," Henry said. Xantha led them to a newly revealed chamber beneath the island. Ancient symbols adorned the walls, intertwining with pulsing lines of advanced technology. At the center stood a crystalline altar, its surface rippling with energy. "This chamber is a nexus point for hybrid energy across multiple dimensions," Xantha explained. "We will perform a ritual here to stabilize the energy and properly integrate Earth into the galactic hybrid network." The alien turned to Henry and Ava, her eyes glowing with an inner light. "The ritual requires a significant amount of your enhanced nectar. Are you willing to provide it?" Without hesitation, the couple agreed. They approached the altar, their bodies beginning to glow with hybrid energy. As they embraced, their skins shimmered, producing the sacred nectar that Xantha carefully collected and channeled into the altar's structure. Nova stepped forward, guided by the alien memories flowing through her mind. She placed her hands on the altar, acting as a bridge between the human wadi hybrids and the cosmic network. Her consciousness expanded, encompassing the vast web of hybrid civilizations spread across the galaxy. The ritual reached its crescendo as Xantha intoned words in an ancient language. The altar pulsed with blinding light, and a wave of energy exploded outward from the chamber. It swept across the island, enveloping everything in its path. Outside, Aiden and Lyra watched in awe as the unstable hybrid zones began to stabilize. The rampant mutations affecting local flora and fauna settled into balanced, sustainable forms. Trees that had grown to impossible heights now swayed gently, their fractal patterns a testament to their hybrid nature. The energy wave continued to spread, touching every corner of the Earth. Instead of chaos, it brought a subtle enhancement to the planet's biosphere. In forests and oceans, deserts and tundras, life forms experienced a moment of profound connection with the world around them. As the ritual concluded, Sister Xantha turned to the assembled humans with a smile. Earth is now successfully integrated into the galactic hybrid network. This connection will allow for the gradual and controlled introduction of hybrid adaptations to your world's species, ensuring a stable and beneficial evolution over time. The alien artifact in the chamber transformed, its structure solidifying into a permanent gateway. Xantha gestured towards it, her robes shimmering with each movement. This will serve as Earth's first stable link to the wider hybrid civilization. We invite you to send ambassadors through the gateway to learn from other hybrid worlds and share your unique experiences. Dr. Thompson stepped forward, her mind racing with possibilities. Sister Xantha, on behalf of the Interspecies Cooperative Council, we accept your invitation. We have so much to learn. As the implications of this cosmic revelation sank in, the research team sprang into action. Dr. Exelvarian began coordinating with global authorities to establish a new organization dedicated to managing Earth's integration into the galactic hybrid network. Henry and Ava, still glowing faintly from the ritual, found themselves at the center of attention. Xantha approached them, her expression warm. Your unique abilities and experience make you ideal liaisons between Earth and the cosmic sisterhood. Will you accept this role? The couple shared a look of understanding before nodding their agreement. Their journey, which had begun with a chance encounter in the hybrid zone, had led them to this incredible moment. Across the room, Aiden and Lyra were deep in discussion with Dr. Thompson. Their expanded hybrid zone would become a thriving center for interspecies cooperation and scientific advancement. They volunteered to lead a new educational initiative, training the next generation of hybrid researchers and ambassadors. Nova, her mind still reeling from the cosmic knowledge she had glimpsed, approached the gateway. She turned to her parents and the research team, her eyes shining with excitement. I want to be Earth's first cosmic diplomat, she announced. I can use my connection to the hybrid network to help guide humanity's path among the stars. As preparations began for Nova's journey, Dr. Thompson and her team dove into the wealth of new information and technology provided by the Cosmic Sisterhood. Their work promised to revolutionize fields from medicine to space exploration, opening up new frontiers of scientific discovery. Henry and Ava stood hand in hand at the entrance to the gateway, watching as Nova made her final preparations. The shimmering portal beckoned, offering a glimpse into a vast, hybrid universe filled with endless possibilities. Are you ready? Ava asked, squeezing Henry's hand. He nodded, a mix of excitement and nervousness evident in his voice. As ready as I'll ever be. It's hard to believe how far we've come since that day in the hybrid zone. As they prepared to take their first steps into the wider hybrid civilization, the couple shared a loving look. Their journey had only just begun, and the stars awaited.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.